I open my eyes, and the first thing I see is a ceiling papered in yellowed newspaper, and the first thing I smell is mildew and bitter Chinese medicine. Welcome to 1959. My name, the body's name, is Chen Wei, a fresh vocational school grad, dirt poor, father dead young, mother, Fan Shufin, bedridden for years, a little Mei Mei, Chen Yu, so thin she's mostly eyeballs. The original Chen Wei died the night before he was supposed to report to the county machinery factory, starved, exhausted, hopeless. And into that hollowed-out body dropped an engineer from the future. So here's my starter pack: a dying mom, an empty rice jar, a Mei Mei you could read a newspaper through, and a brain full of engineering degrees worth exactly nothing to a man who can't afford breakfast. That's the difficulty setting. No cheat, no gold, no system. Yet. "Brother, you're awake?" Chen Yu comes in, cradling a bowl of dark, murky medicine, her face the color of old paper. "Mother Wang's medicine's ready. Drink it. It'll give you strength." And I look at the bowl beside it. Thin porridge so watery you could count the individual rice grains. And something in my chest aches. Because this is my home now. And the home has bare walls and an empty jar. I'm not hungry. Give it to Mother Wang. 2 minutes into a famine, and my first act is refusing food so my sick mother can eat. I'm already better than most of us. And then, right on cue, the neighborhood's ambient villain arrives. Widow Guo, professional gossip, shrilling through the door. "Sister-in-law Chen, didn't your Chen Wei say he was reporting to the factory today? It's past noon." What, were the vocational spots fake, and now he's too scared to go? And from her sickbed, my mother coughs with fury. "Don't talk nonsense. My son is promising." "Promising? Then why is your family starving?" And my fist clenches, because that's the oldest law of the world. Poor means mocked, and the mockery is the trigger. Ding! Strong survival crisis and desire to change fate detected. The super engineer system is now Axes, distributing new player gift pack. Obtained. The complete design blueprints for the Dongfanghong 59 tractor. Obtained. Master-level fitter repair skill. A system, and not a fireball or a magic sword. A set of tractor blueprints and a master mechanic's hands. Which sounds boring, until you remember it's 1959. This is a farming county, and a working tractor is basically a money-printing dragon. The system read the room perfectly. It didn't hand a starving engineer a weapon. It handed me leverage. So I walk to the door and look Widow Guo dead in the eye, cold enough that she flinches. And I don't even argue. I just turn back inside. "Mother Wang, little sis, don't worry. From today, our family's good days are starting." And they stare at me, worried and confused. Because the boy who woke up from that nap seems like a completely different person. Because I am. I drink the see-through porridge, feel my stomach uncave slightly, and set out. A future engineer walking into the past's only factory, with a dragon rolled up in a cloth bag. Huayan County Machinery Factory. The one industrial site in the whole county. Imposing gate, 2 armed guards standing like fence posts. I hand over my papers, and in the personnel department I meet the first mini-boss. Section Chief Shu. Slicked hair, glasses, and a sneer he's clearly been saving. "Chen Wei? Vocational school? Humph. Kids these days study a few days and think they're geniuses. You'll go to Workshop 1 as an apprentice. Build some character." And I frown, because by actual policy, a vocational grad enters as at least a level 14 technician. This is a deliberate shafting. My file clearly says I'm here as a technician. A technician? You? A kid who hasn't grown his first chest hair? Take the apprentice job, or go home. Go home and starve, he means, with a mom and a Mei Mei waiting to eat. So I take a breath and swallow it, because arguing with a section chief Shu is like arguing with a pothole. Pointless. You go over its head. "I'd like to see Factory Director Gao." And Shu scoffs. "Director Gao, just like that. Who do you think you are?" And right then the office door bangs open, and a burly man in grease-covered overalls fills the frame. "Old Shu, who are you puffing up your little section chief chest at now?" "Zhang Wei Min, Director of Workshop 1. And Shu's sneer melts into instant butter. "Director Zhang. Just teaching this greenhorn the ropes." And I seize the exact gap. "Director Zhang, I'm a technician reporting for duty, and I have important technical drawings for Director Gao." "Blueprints? What blueprints?" "Design drawings for a new tractor." and both men say tractor at the same time. Because in 1959, Huai'an, there are like a handful of tractors total, each one a gold mine. Section Chief Shu goes straight to sneering. You're bragging? A kid designing tractors? But Zhang Wei-min, shrewder, stares into my eyes. Boy, you know what happens to people who talk big in this factory. I do, I say, level. That's why I want to see Director Gao. Director Gao Weiguo's office, a man drowning. Outdated equipment, backward tech, superiors screaming for output daily, hair going white from it. Zhang Wei-min brings me in and points. This is Chen Wei, and he says he's got blueprints for a new tractor. And Gao Jianjun shoots up from his chair. What? His glare like lightning. Are you telling the truth? I calmly pull the roll from my bag. The system generated it on period-correct paper in period-correct drafting style, and I spread it out. And Gao Jianjun's breathing goes ragged after one glance. Because he's an old-school, hands-on technician, and he can read what he's looking at. Clean structure, ingenious design. Ideas nobody in this era has ever seen. An independent suspension. A hydraulic lifting system that erases every problem making current tractors clumsy bricks. His fingers are literally trembling. This? This is your drawing? I designed it. He can't quite believe a vocational kid did this, so I give the preloaded cover story. Loved farm machinery, worked it out myself. And he bellows for the ultimate authority. Chief Engineer Fan Guangfu. Gray-haired technical legend dragged in by a panting Zhang Wei-min. And Fan adjusts his glasses, leans in casual. And the more he looks, the more his face changes. From casual to serious to utter shock. This design is a masterpiece. This power distribution unit, this gearbox, ingenious. Who designed this? And Gao Jianjun points at the calm young man. Him? Fan nearly falls over. Two of the most respected technical men in the county, one after another, hit the exact same wall. This is genius tier work, and it came from a kid who couldn't afford lunch? And that's the whole engine of my story. I keep handing the past artifacts from the future, and the past keeps short-circuiting trying to explain them. And then Gao Jianjun makes a decision that drops every jaw in the room. His hand slams the desk. Chen Wei! From this moment, you are a level 14 technician. No, you'll lead the new tractor project. And your pay? Forget level 12. We pay you at level 10 standard. And Zhang Wei-min and Chief Engineer Fan gasp. Because level 12 alone equals a deputy section chief's treatment. And a fresh vocational grad, no connections, rocketing there in a single afternoon is unprecedented in the factory's history. And my heart hammers. It worked. I bet right. As the system chimes. Ding! Hidden mission complete. Make a name for yourself. Reward. 200 RMB cash. 50 gin grain coupons. 5 gin meat coupons. 10 chi cloth coupons. And master level machinist skill. 200 RMB and a mountain of ration coupons. In 1959, that's the difference between a starving family and a fed one. Delivered as a quest reward. My mom eats now. My Mei eats now. I unlocked a stable food supply by walking into a room and being correct. And the cherry on top? Zhang Wei-min strides back into personnel wear. Section Chief Shu is fidgeting and booms it. That kid? That's Technician Chen now, level 12, personally appointed, paid at level 10. Do the paperwork now. And Section Chief Shu goes white, ears ringing, because the poor boy he sneered at and tried to bury has, in one afternoon, become a leader half a rank above him. The sneer he'd been saving all morning got refunded, with interest, by lunch. Then Zhang Wei-min walks me into Workshop 1. Heat, rust, and oil stink, dozens of roaring machines. And the workers clock the fresh-faced kid in the crisp new cadre uniform and start whispering. Delicate skin, tender flesh, not one of us, probably some leader's relative sent down for a gilded resume stint. And when Zhang Wei-min announces this is Technician Chen, he'll be your technical guidance, the whole floor erupts. The technician? Him? Does he even have hair on his lip? And the workshop's designated hothead, Apprentice Guo Lei, swaggers right up. Director Zhang, you joking? This guy's going to guide us? Can he even run a lathe? And when Zhang Wei-min shoots me a pleading look, say something nice, calm them down. I say something, all right, but not nice. You're right. Technicians need real skill. So, what do you think real skill looks like? And Guole walks straight into it. He points at a canvas-draped hulk in the corner. That's the Ural heavy-duty boring machine, imported from the Soviet Union. A real treasure. It broke down. Chief Engineer Fawn and his whole team spent half a month on it, and it's been dead ever since. You fix that, I'll call you master. And the crowd roars, certain I won't dare. Because that machine defeated the best man in the building. And Jiang Wei-min is about to shut it down to save my face. And I smile and say 2 words. Okay. Dead silence. What did you say? I said okay. Take me to it. And Jiang Wei-min nearly faints. My little darling, you just got hired. Don't torch it all on day 1. Because experts came from all over to look at that machine and left shaking their heads. I lift the canvas on a colossal steel behemoth, parts scattered on the ground from repeated failed repairs. And I glance at it, and the master fitter skill fires automatically, flooding my mind with the machine's entire structure, principles, and fault points at once, like an old doctor reading a disease at a glance. Spindles seized. Transmission gears badly worn. Leak in the hydraulic control valve. I rattle it off casually, and the veterans' faces change, because those are the exact problems they diagnosed and failed to fix. And Guole scoffs. Everyone knows that. Knowing's useless. We can't fix it. And I ignore him and crawl under the machine. And, to everyone's confusion, I start removing a small balancing block nobody's ever thought to touch. What are you doing? That's not broken. Because they checked the balance weight 100 times and it was fine. I pull it, run a finger along the mounting groove, and hold the finger up. A single, near-invisible metal shaving. See this? The balance weight's bolts shifted slightly over years of vibration. So at high RPM, the spindle takes uneven stress. That's why it seizes. You've all been replacing the spindle and the bearings, treating the symptom. Root cause is here. Swap them 1,000 times, it won't hold. And every veteran craftsman freezes. Because why didn't we think of that? They'd been changing the part that broke, instead of finding the part that broke it. I didn't outmuscle them, I outdiagnosed them, in one glance. On a machine that beat the whole factory for 2 weeks. That's the master fitter skill. It doesn't make me strong, it makes me right. And when Chief Engineer Fan comes running, the site rearranges his afternoon. The genius kid he just met is directing the most unruly workers in the building. The arrogant master craftsmen now gathered around me like school kids. Grind 0.5 millimeter off the number 3 gear. Swap the valve's seal for oil-resistant rubber. Clean the bearings in diesel, then grease them. Clear, precise, zero hesitation. A general running a battle. 3 hours later, under everyone's held breath, I flip the power myself. And after months of silence, the steel behemoth wakes with a deep, steady roar. Spindle spinning smooth, every gauge dead in the normal range. It worked. And the workshop goes from graveyard silent to a wall of cheering. Jiang Wei-min grabs my hand, red-faced. Technician Chen, you're a treasure. Chief Engineer Fan holds my other hand in tears. And Guole, under everyone's eyes, snaps bolt upright and bows deep. Master Chen. Sincere, ringing across the floor. The workshop's biggest hothead just made himself my first true convert. And Gao Jianjun comes sprinting, sees the machine humming, and hugs me. Good LAD, I knew I didn't misjudge you. And announces to the whole floor, Comrade Chen Wei is awarded 100 yuan. When the average wage is 20 or 30, the floor loses its mind. That's a year's pay. And I do the math, dazed. 59.5 advance plus 100 bonus equals 159.5 yuan on my first day. And the system chimes a fitness reward, and a warm current sweeps my fatigue away and fills me with power. Because it doesn't just pay in coupons, it pays in a body. Quietly turning the starved kid into something that can actually do the work my brain designs. That's the pattern locked in on day 1. I don't crush the doubters, I convert them. The snob personnel chief I step over, but the honest workers, even the hothead, I turn into believers, because they're my people. The villains in this story are corruption and sabotage. On the factory floor, it's all family. And I've already got the whole workshop calling me master. And in the office, over hot tea, Gao Jianjun asks what I think of the tractor project. And I lay it out cold. Blueprints are step 1, but there are 3 walls. 1, Materials. Our steel's too weak for the load-bearing parts. 2. Equipment. Even with the boring machine fixed, we've got no large stamping press, no high-precision gear machines. 3. Talent. The worker's skills are all over the place, and his smile fades because he knows all 3. We'll build the equipment ourselves, I say. Build it yourself? He blinks. Modify ordinary lathes into gear hoppers. And a stamping press is structurally simple. With steel, we design and build our own. Because I've got decades ahead machine tool designs stacked in my head. Give me authorization and manpower, and I guarantee a brand new 800-ton stamping press in 3 months. And his heart slams, because an 800-ton press is something even the big city factories don't have. A massive gamble. He looks into my steady eyes, grits his teeth, and slams the desk. Okay, I'll take the bet. Every technician, every resource is yours. I want one result. A drowning director just bet his entire factory on a 20-year-old's promise, on day 1, and I shook on it like it was nothing. Because to me, it is nothing. I'm not gambling. I'm reading off the answer key. And then, the beat this whole story is 4. Dusk. I walk home to the crumbling courtyard with a fortune in my pocket. And I hear my mother coughing and my Mei sobbing through the door. Because Widow Guo swung by again to gloat that I must have been sent home in disgrace. So I find my mother pale against the headboard and Chen Yu red-eyed, both bracing for bad news. Brother, how'd the registration go? Chen Yu whispers, afraid to hear it. And I say nothing. I just walk to the table and empty my pockets. A small mountain of crisp 10-yuan notes. And beside it, grain coupons, meat coupons, cloth coupons. More money than either of them has seen in their lives. And their first reaction breaks my heart. Because it's fear. Brother, where did this come from? And my mother, terrified. Genza, you didn't do anything foolish? Because in their world, a poor boy coming home with a mountain of cash means he did something desperate and illegal. And my chest aches, and I explain gently, it's honest money. I fixed an important machine. The director promoted me to technician and gave a bonus, 159.5 yuan. And they hear it like a foreign language. Really? You're not lying to Mother Wang? Until I wave a meat coupon at my Mei. Know what this is? Tomorrow I buy meat and we make dumplings. And Chen Yu's mouth actually waters because she can't remember the last time she tasted meat. And my mother finally breaks, tears streaming, hand over her mouth. Good. Good. My son has made something of himself. Your father can rest in peace now. And Chen Yu clings to my arm, laughing and crying at once. A house that hadn't held laughter in years, suddenly full of it. Stop crying, I say softly, patting her back. Tomorrow I take you to the county hospital, the best doctor. We have money now. We'll cure you. You, take this cloth coupon, buy fabric, make yourself new clothes. No more patches. And that is the meaning behind everything I'm about to build. The press, the tractors, the steel, none of it is glory. It's this. A sick mother who gets to see a doctor. A starving Mei who gets dumplings and a dress that isn't patched. A house that laughs again. Every genius blueprint traces straight back to this table. I will never lose sight of it. And then, on cue, the gate creaks and Widow Guo pokes her head in. Came to watch the Lins humiliated, sees the cash mountain, and her eyes bulge. My God, Chen Wei, you struck it rich? And instantly flips from gloating to fawning, rubbing her hands. Oh, Technician Chen, is there anything I can help with? No help needed, I say, calm. But let's be clear. My family was poor, and we took your help before. No complaint there. But gossip in front of my house again, and don't blame me for being impolite. Quiet, but with the weight of authority, and the fresh strength puts a real physical pressure behind my stare that makes her legs tremble. She stammers an excuse and scurries off. And Chen Yu pumps her little fist. Brother, you're amazing. The neighborhood bully who mocked a starving family got shown the door by the boy she mocked, and the correction ran on the same currency she used, status. Poor is mocked, capable is feared. The scale just flipped in one day. And that night, the system chimes with something new. Detecting improvement in family life. Special reward, a health-strengthening soup recipe, remarkable effect on chronic illness. And 1 cubic meter of Spirit Springs space. Storage. Internal time flows at 1/10 the outside, and my eyes light up because this hits both my wounds at once. The soup. My mother's chronic illness has been a stone on my heart, and now there's hope. And the ingredients are all common 1959 herbs, easy to find. In the Spirit Springs space, 1 cubic meter, sure, but time inside runs 1/10 as fast. A portable fridge and a safe. The system read that my family got happier and paid me for it, which tells you what this system actually values. It's not a war engine, it's a take care of your people engine, and it rewards me for doing exactly that. The next morning, Section Chief Zhu is waiting at the factory gate, bowing, beaming, the exact opposite of yesterday. Engineer Chen, your office key. Director Gao arranged a private office, 3rd floor, sun-facing. Presenting it with both hands, terrified of a grudge. The sneer that tried to bury me yesterday is now holding my door open. That's the raw exchange rate of power and status. Reality is exactly that blunt. Then Gao Jianjun calls the project kickoff. A smoke-filled conference room, every department head, every eye on the legendary kid. And he spreads the tractor blueprints on the table. This is a matter of life and death for our factory. Comrade Chen Wei designed it, and from today, the whole factory pivots to this project. I'm forming the Dongfang Hong project team, with Comrade Chen Wei as project leader, fully responsible for all technical work and production scheduling. And the room buzzes with alarm. A kid, 1 day in, handed that much power? And 2 men in particular sour. Because if scheduling runs through me, their sections become my errand boys. And Guo Deming, pointed chin, slick, a notorious old hand who trades on his purchasing network and dares talk back to the director himself, stands up to plant the flag. Factory manager, I don't question Engineer Chen's ability. It's just, he's young, unfamiliar with our channels. Is it really appropriate to put him fully in charge? Which is a challenge dressed as concern. And Gao Jianjun's face darkens, about to blow. And I tug his sleeve and stand up myself. Section Chief Guo, is it? You're right. I am young, and I don't know this factory. Then my voice climbs. But I know how to build a tractor. And I run my finger down the blueprint. I know what grade of manganese steel this main beam needs. I know the quench hardness for these gears. I know the cast iron ratio that makes the engine block most durable. And you? And then the machine gun opens up. Section Chief Guo, do you know where to buy 16-number manganese steel to spec? Its carbon, silicon, manganese content at smelting? Section Chief Joe, what cutting tools for these high-precision gears, at what speed and feed? How to hold quench temperature so the hardness clears Rockwell 58 without cracking? Dead silence. Because Guo and Zhang can't answer a single word. They have no idea what any of it means. And their faces go deep purple. And I deliver the verdict cold. You don't understand. I do. That's why I have the final say. Anyone thinks my plan's bad? Bring a better one. If you can't produce it, shut your mouth and carry out orders. A 1-day rookie just machine-gunned 2 veteran section chiefs with questions only the actual expert could answer. Because that's the beautiful brutality of real competence. I didn't pull rank. I didn't name drop. I asked technical questions and let their silence do the humiliating. And Gao Jianjun's eyes sparkle. Guts and accountability. Exactly the man I want. Anyone with objections may submit their resignation now. Nobody moves. Then I soften. Since there are no objections, step 1. And I turn to Guo Deming with a meaningful smile. I need you to contact the Provincial No. 1 steel mill immediately. I'm going there in person to solve our steel problem. And Guo Deming's heart drops. Because the Provincial No. 1 steel mill is a powerful enterprise that doesn't even notice county factories. And I want a special grade of manganese steel. This kid is deliberately setting me up. So he hedges. Engineer Chen, that's not easy. They won't care about our small order. And I cut him off flat. That's your problem, not mine. My job is to design the best tractor. Yours is to get the best materials. If you can't handle materials, maybe you should resign as head of purchasing. No mercy. But Guo Deming does not take it gracefully. Back in his office, he kicks the filing cabinet. A brat dares shit on my head. And a shifty-eyed clerk sidles up with a plan. The provincial steel mill's famously impossible, so if the trip fails, it's not Guo's fault. The one who loses face is Lin, for his unrealistic wishful thinking. And with a little maneuvering in the middle, they could make sure the kid eats a real beating in the provincial capital. And Guo Deming slaps his thigh. Yes. Let's see how arrogant the kid stays after the provincial capital chews him up. So the first internal villain is set. Not a monster, a bureaucrat with connections and a grudge, quietly arranging for the trip to go wrong. The guy who'd rather sabotage the tractor than lose face to a kid. 2 days later, Guo Deming pokes his head into my office with a fake troubled smile and a slip of paper. Engineer Chen, I did what you asked. The provincial steel mill says no special steel to spare. And he hands over a note, hastily scrawled, steel in short supply, no signature, no seal. With a flicker of smugness, now. You've got to eat it, kid. And I glance at the unsigned scrap and sneer internally because the sabotage is online and obvious. So I don't argue the steel. I set a trap. Section Chief Guo, did you buy the train tickets? And Guo, caught off guard, stammers that sleepers are sold out. Maybe we should take a long-distance bus, which turns a day-and-a-night train ride into an endurance trial on 1959 roads that might literally fall apart, with priceless blueprints aboard. And even Jiang Wei Min smells it, and I tap the note. You said you asked someone at the mill. Who? The director? Or a gatekeeper? An old comrade with connections. You have connections, and all you got was an unsigned scrap? Then I stand. And the tickets. Did you go to the duty manager? This is urgent official business on a project the city is watching. By regulation, railways prioritize us. You haven't done anything, and you're already reciting difficulties. It's not that it's hard, it's that you don't want to. And Guo Deming breaks into a cold sweat and goes red to white, because he never expected the kid to know the actual bureaucratic mechanics this well. And Jiang Wei Min and Fan finally get it. The man is deliberately sabotaging me. Guo Deming, a matter this big and you play tricks? And right then, Gao Jianjun walks in, dark-faced. He'd heard the shouting in the hall, gets the gist from one look at Ash and Guo and calm me, and starts trembling with rage. His hand smacks the desk. The whole factory's working overtime, and you're stabbing me in the back? Engineer Chen is a treasure I hired. Messing with him is messing with me. You are suspended as head of purchasing, effective now. I want your written self-criticism before I arrive tomorrow. And Guo Deming's vision goes black, begging, I was wrong. Too late. The saboteur's own trap sprang on him in under an hour. He tried to send me into a slow humiliation, and instead talked himself out of a job, because he underestimated the one thing a future engineer knows cold: the rules. Then Gao Jianjun turns to me, rage instantly becoming apology. We can't rely on them for the provincial trip. Deep breath. I'll go with you myself. And the room staggers. The factory's top executive personally accompanying a technician on a business trip is unprecedented. An enormous amount of face. I want to see with my own eyes how our genius engineer dominates a big provincial city, because this director genuinely stands up for his people. And to show what doors open means, he picks up the phone. Connect me to Station Master Fan. And the voice that answers goes instantly respectful. Director Gao, what are your instructions? And Gao Jianjun barks over the sleepers is sold out. I don't care how tight your tickets are. Key City project, urgent business. You will squeeze out 2 sleepers for the 3 p.m. train, or I hold you responsible. And the station master crumbles. Yes, 2 lower bunks, 1 phone call. The wall Guo Deming swore was insurmountable, Gao Jianjun walked through in 30 seconds. Because that is the power of a leader who actually uses it for the work instead of against it. At 2:30, a worn military green Jeep pulls up at my crumbling courtyard, the factory's only car, and the whole alley erupts. A car? Whose house is this? And when I walk out and climb in, they're floored. And Widow Guo, squatting by her door picking chives, drops the whole bunch in the dirt. My God, in a few days he's riding in a car? And stares at the dust cloud, drowning in feelings as the Jeep speeds off. At the station, VIP everything. Station Master Fan jogs up before the train even stops, presenting 2 lower berths with both hands. And when he asks who the young man is, Gao Jianjun says, leaning on it, "Our factory's new chief engineer, Comrade Chen Wei." Chief engineer. An upgrade delivered mid-sentence, and Fan feels a chill and scrambles to shake hands, while I stay neither humble nor arrogant. A week ago, I was a corpse in a starving house. Now, the factory director carries my bags to the provincial capital. A station master grovels for my tickets, and the neighborhood gossip drops her dinner, watching me ride off in the only car in town. And I'm not doing it for the status. I'm doing it because my mother needs a doctor, and my Mei needs dumplings, and the fastest road to that runs through a steel mill in the provincial capital. On the train, Gao Jianjun finally asks the question everyone asks. "Where did you learn all this? We've got college grads who can't touch you." And I run the cover story. Read every foreign mechanical magazine in the library, thought hard, ideas came. Which is flimsy. But it's the only card you can play, when the truth is, I'm from 60 years in the future. Then he probes further. What about running the project? And I drop something the era has no words for. A standardized production and performance-based incentive system. And he squints at 2 phrases that sound like sci-fi, so I make it plain. Right now, one master craftsman makes a part, start to finish, by feel. Good mood, sharp hands, high precision. Fought with his wife, handshakes, scrap. That's experience-based production. It lives or dies on a handful of veterans. They quit, the workshop stops. Standardized production sets a clear standard for every step. Which lathe, what speed, what feed, quench at what temperature, how long. Turn every step into 1 + 1 = 2. So any trained, ordinary worker who follows the procedure makes a qualified part. And that hits him like lightning. Then I twist the knife of insight. Performance bonuses. Right now, everyone earns the same whether they work hard or slack. So we break the iron rice bowl. Set a base quota, say 10 good parts a day. Hit it, base pay. Beat it, bonus. Miss it, pay docked. And suddenly the workers race to their stations without a cadre nagging them. Boom. Gao Jianjun feels a bomb go off in his skull, grabs my hand. You're my Zhuge Liang. Comparing a 20-year-old to history's greatest strategist, because that's the second superpower I smuggled in from the future. Not just better machines, better systems. I'm not handing 1959 a tractor. I'm handing it modern industrial management, one train conversation at a time. And then the universe hands me a jackpot I didn't ask for. The carriage speakers crackle, a panicked voice. A passenger in the next compartment collapsed and is critical, urgently seeking any doctor aboard. That's right, next door. And we rush into a packed compartment where a gray-haired man in his 50s lies on the floor, clutching his throat. Face gone blue-purple, body convulsing, minutes from death, while his secretary screams uselessly. "Vice Governor Xu, someone find a doctor!" And nobody dares step in. And I part the crowd and diagnose it in one glance. Acute airway obstruction, a foreign object, 3 minutes to suffocation. Move. I haul the old man up from behind, plant a bow stance, fist below the sternum, and drive inward and up. Once, twice, 3 times, and a peanut-sized chunk of meat shoots out of his mouth onto the floor. Air rushes back into his lungs. He coughs hard, and his face blooms back to rosy. Alive. And the whole compartment stares, because a man they'd written off as dead got yanked back in 3 moves. Because what I just did is the Heimlich maneuver. Routine 21st century first aid. And in 1959, an absolute divine skill. Then the old man fixes his gaze on me. "Young man, did you save me? What's your name?" And Gao Jianjun leaps in. His name is Chen Wei, an engineer at Huaiyan County Machinery Factory. And the old man says, solemn, "Young comrade, you saved my life today. I, Vice Governor Xu Jiantao, owe you an enormous favor. Any difficulty you can't resolve, come find me directly. Vice Governor Xu Jiqiang." And the whole compartment gasps, Gao Jianjun's calves cramping. Because that's the vice governor in charge of industry for the whole province, the single most useful man on earth for a machine factory to know. Choking to death in the next compartment, saved by me, who now holds a personal debt from him. That's not luck. Well, partly luck, but it's skill that cashed it. And he tears a page from his notebook and writes his office and home phone numbers. Any problem you can't solve, call me directly. And I take the thin slip in both hands, light as paper, heavy as a mountain. My biggest trump card for everything ahead. The steel problem? Solved before we even reached the mill. And here's the tell of who I am. I didn't save the man for the connection. I saw someone dying and did the obvious thing. The phone number was a side effect of basic decency plus future knowledge, which is, honestly, this whole story's cheat code in miniature. Be genuinely good. Be genuinely competent. And the rest arrives on its own. Zhu has his secretary phone ahead to the steel mill's director, Wu. Huaiyan needs special steel. Give it your full support. So Gao Jianjun strides toward the number 1 steel mill, certain the manganese steel is already beckoning. And we hit a cold, unyielding wall. Because in the purchasing office sits a 40s section chief, triangular eyes, legs crossed, sipping tea, who doesn't lift an eyelid. Huaiyan County? Never heard of it. 16 number manganese steel? Booked through next year. Letter of introduction? We only recognize allocation orders here. Without one, even the emperor gets nothing. And Gao Jianjun, a genuine big shot back in Huaiyan, gets dismissed like a beggar. Face flushing, lips trembling with rage he can't vent. Because this isn't his county, and here he's nobody. But I watch coldly and read it exactly. Section Chief Fan isn't unaware, he's pretending. Because these entrenched gatekeepers are masters of the squeeze. The more anxious you are, the more aloof they get, until you show sincerity. And I confirm it with one flat question. Section Chief Fan, so even Vice Governor Shu's influence isn't enough. And Fan's eyelid twitches at the name, then he slams his mug down. Don't know any Vice Governor Shu. Keep making trouble, and I call security. Because Fan doesn't believe us. To him, a rundown county factory dropping Vice Governor Shu is obviously a bluff. So I make up my mind. This one won't admit it till reality punches him. And instead of arguing, I pull Gao Jianjun out. Outside, Gao Jianjun paces, all his toughness gone. That Fan is a rock in a latrine, smelly and stubborn. What do we do? Guo Deming would laugh his head off. And I'm calm as still water. It's not that he disrespects Su. He thinks we're fake. Is there a post office nearby? And we walk to the post office, and I pull Shu's handwritten note from my inner pocket and dial the provincial government. I'm looking for Secretary Zhao. Tell him Chun Wei from Huaiyan. We met on the train. And a moment later, Comrade Chun Wei, Vice Governor Shu was just talking about you. And I lay out the facts flat. Section Chief Fan says without a transfer order it's useless, told us to go back. 10 seconds of silence. Then Xiao Zhao's voice comes back, barely containing fury. Outrageous! He dares disobey the governor's orders? Go back to the purchasing office now. Wait for my call. And I hang up and tell Gao Jianjun, easy, problem solved. Let's go have some tea while we wait. We return to the corridor. Don't even go in. And Fan snorts and turns away. Sure, we're stubborn mules. And less than 5 minutes later, the office's black phone rings, shrill and urgent. Fan, playing his usual game, lets it ring to deflate the caller's arrogance, until it won't stop, and he snatches it up irritated. Who is it in a hurry to be reborn? And the impatience freezes on his face, and his eyes go wide like he's seen a ghost. Director Zhou, it's you! His spine bends instantly, bowing to a phone the caller can't see, sweat streaming. Yes, I'm Fan Lixin. What? Vice Governor Shu? Huaiyan Machinery Factory? His legs buckle, and he turns and sees through the glass the 2 men he'd shooed like flies, now looking to him like 2 deadly devils. He finally grasps what he kicked. Yes, I was wrong. I was confused. I'll fix it right away, practically kneeling into the receiver. And after hanging up, he springs up electrocuted and folds into a 90-degree bow, head nearly to the floor. My lords, I was blind, ignorant, a complete scoundrel. And slaps himself across the face twice, loud. Please, come in, the best Longjing tea. And Gao Jianjun stands stunned at the whiplash. Arrogant tyrant to sniveling doormat in 90 seconds, and feels the whole lesson land. They weren't being unreasonable. He just wasn't of high enough status to reason with. And I take the tea Fan's trembling hands offer, blow on it, do not drink, and ask flat. Section Chief Fan, now, can we talk about steel? Whatever you need, I'll sell everything I own to get it. And I say, first batch, 20 tons of No.16 manganese steel. And Fan's heart skips, but remembering Director Wu's near murderous tone, he doesn't dare object. Guaranteed. And then Director Wu Wei-dong himself arrives, glares daggers at Fan, and shakes Gao Jianjun's hand full of apology. Huayan developed an advanced tractor for national agriculture. Anyone who drops the ball here is a sinner against the people. 20 tons of manganese steel, pulled straight from stock reserved for major factories, priority on future supply, and the mill's own transport fleet to deliver it in 2 days. Gao Jianjun leaves in a daze, clutching the red-sealed order tighter than a gold ingot, muttering the lesson on the train home. Skills alone aren't enough. You saved Shu's life, and that favor beats everything. One phone call, using one debt, cashed by one act of decency on a train. Fan tried to run the oldest gatekeeper squeeze in the book and got flattened. Because I didn't play the anxiety game. I just made one call and let the whole hierarchy fall on his head. Absolute superiority makes the paper tigers fold themselves. 2 days later, the steel trucks roll in right behind us. 20 tons of gleaming black manganese steel dumped outside the workshop, and the whole factory erupts. They were gone a few days and brought back the steel nobody could get. And in the icy conference room, Gao Jianjun springs the trap. Are you in contact with Fawn at the provincial steel mill? No. Liar! Fist on the table. Fawn confessed you paid him 200 yuan to deliberately block us. And the room erupts. Because 200 yuan is half a year's wages. Guo Deming spent a fortune of his own money to sabotage his own factory's most important project, purely to humiliate a kid. And he slumps, deathly pale, then drops to his knees, begging on 15 years of service and an elderly mother. And Gao Jianjun turns to me. Engineer Chen, what do you think we should do? And I, who could have buried him, am silent a moment. Then, nobody's perfect. Give him a chance to make amends. I hear the warehouse is short a custodian. Send Section Chief Guo there to get some experience. And that's the face slap. And it's crueler and kinder than firing. The slick purchasing chief who traded on connections gets sent to Count Invenfor calm the warehouse. Kept employed for his old mother, but stripped of every ounce of power he abused. Mercy and demotion in one stroke. I don't destroy the man. I just quietly remove his teeth and let him keep his job counting bolts. His grand scheme cost him 200 yuan and his career. And the kid he tried to break decided his fate with a shrug. So the steel came home and Guo went to count bolts. And now the beat this whole thing is actually 4. I took the system's soup recipe to the oldest pharmacy in the county, and the ancient pharmacist read it and nearly dropped his glasses. Who prescribed this? A master. Absolutely a master. Ordinary herbs, but the balance is exquisite. Hidden vitality, miraculous for chronic depletion. Because anything the system spits out is top shelf. 7. Doses. At home, I brewed it myself, followed the steps exact. And when Mother Wang and Chen Yu weren't looking, I dripped a few drops of spirit spring water into the pot, water that cleans the marrow and doubles the medicine. Then I carried the bowl to Mother Wang's bed and blew it cool, spoonful by spoonful, and fed it to her. And her eyes welled up, because she couldn't remember the last time anyone took care of her. A warm current spread through a body that had been cold for half a year. This medicine, I feel warm all over. Next dawn, I woke up to noise in the yard and found my mother, bedridden over half a year, up and sweeping. I didn't believe my eyes. Mother Wang, go rest! And she turned, her whole face lit up. Where? I'm fine. Woke up with boundless energy. Chest isn't tight. The cough is almost gone. Your medicine is miraculous. A woman who couldn't walk 10 steps, sweeping her own yard. That's the payoff every blueprint was secretly aiming at. You can measure this whole story 2 ways. In tractors and steel and provincial vice governors, or in one sick woman well enough to hold a broom. The second one is the one I actually care about, so I threw a feast. Slapped meat coupons on the butcher's counter. 2 gin of pork belly, flour, eggs, tofu, vegetables. Walked home with meat in one hand and flour in the other, and the whole courtyard erupted. The Chen family bought meat, and Widow Guo, mouth-watering, drowning in regret, tried to reconcile. Brought over pumpkin porridge. Got a cool, no need, we've cooked from Chen Yu. And when she oiled up to me about helping the neighbors, I smiled. Auntie Guo, when my family was starving, I never once saw you help. And she went red and slunk off. Braised pork on the table. Mother Wang wept into a trembling bite of it. Our good days have really come. Chen Yu ate with her eyes shining, and Mother Wang announced she'd visit the factory tomorrow. Not to see where I worked, to walk there on her own 2 feet and show the whole neighborhood the Chen family had pulled through. I said yes. Home handled. So I threw everything at the tractor, and the wall was the gearbox, the tractor's heart. Dozens of high-precision gears that decide the whole machine's power and lifespan, and Huayan had no gear hobbing machine to cut them. Precision gear, state-controlled, off-limits to a county factory. Applying through channels would take 1.5 years. Dead end. So I laid new drawings on the table. We can't buy it, can't wait for it, so we build our own gear hobbing machine. And the room recoiled. Build one? We've never even seen one. Until I clarified. Not from scratch, we modify. Take our existing C620 lathe, bolt on a homemade transmission and gear change setup, turn it into a simple gear hobber. And the veterans crowded the blueprint. An intricate mess of gears and worm drives linking the spindle's rotation to the tool post feed, so the gear blank turns an exact angle per spindle turn, and the hob cuts a true tooth. And Chief Engineer Fan's hands shook. Genius! To solve the linkage ratio like this! Unbelievable! And Guo Lei looked at me like an omnipotent god. Fan flagged the real problem. The core worm gear decides everything. How do we cut it? And I stayed calm. I'll machine the critical core myself. The rest, the best men in the factory. And Guo Lei roared, Master, just give the order. You could ask us to build a rocket and we wouldn't blink. Gao Jianjun set the clock. Trial run in 3 days. And I didn't sit in the office barking orders. I changed into work clothes, got on the floor, picked the best C620, and took the make-or-break job myself, machining the precision worm gear. Stood at a small precision lathe for 10 hours straight, eyes and hands and brain in one loop, the cutting tool an extension of my arm, carving micron precision into spinning steel. And the whole workshop caught fire off my effort, nothing but the roar of machines and everyone giving everything. Because that's the leadership I actually run on, not authority, sweat. I outwork the workers on the hardest part, and they follow because I'm not above the job, I'm the best at it. But it wasn't smooth. Near assembly, old Master Zhao botched a quench temperature, and a tiny crack opened in a critical gear as it cooled, scrapping a part that took a full day and night, and he stood there sweating, eyes red, holding the ruined piece. Engineer Chen, I'm so sorry. And the whole floor dropped to freezing, and I picked up the broken gear, didn't get angry, didn't blame, patted his shoulder. Master Zhao, everyone makes mistakes. Failing once isn't scary. What's scary is not having the guts to start over. And I turned to the room. This tells us our heat treatment process needs work. Find the cause, fix it, we progress. And I chalked a fresh set of quench temps and hold times on the blackboard. Again. Because a lesser boss makes an example of the man and kills the morale. I turned a scrapped gear into a process fix, and a scared veteran into a man ready to try again. That's the quiet superpower, not the future knowledge. Knowing people build best when they're not afraid of you. 2 more days round the clock, and the parts came together into an industrial punk, home-built gear hobber bolted onto the C620. A steel monster crouched in the middle of the shop. And the whole factory held its breath as I loaded a blank, fitted the hob, hit start. Buzz crack, golden shavings raining under the lights, nobody breathing. And the tech mounted the finished gear on the measuring instrument and read it out, voice shaking. Tooth profile error, 1/100th of a millimeter. Cumulative pitch, 3/100ths. Helix, passes. And the room detonated. Higher precision than the ministry's own manual, on an ordinary lathe. Guo crushed me in a hug. "You're a god descended to earth." And Fan rubbed his eyes, muttering, "Amazing, amazing." And Gao shook my hand so hard his lips trembled without words. Because that little gear meant Huayan had just mastered the core tech of tractor gearboxes. On a modified lathe that cost us nothing but brains. Word spread like wildfire. By that night, I wasn't just an engineer. I was the factory's idol. And I didn't slow down for a second. Next wall, the 800-ton stamping press. To punch out the tractor's beams and cab shells. No press, no frame, no body. And if the gear machine was clever, this one was hardcore. I designed a mechanical crank press around a single cast steel frame weighing tens of tons. And the casting shop shook their heads. Our little electric furnace can't melt that much iron at once. No mold that big, no crane that big. Impossible. And I answered every can't with a workaround. Not enough furnace? Smelt in stages. Blend the iron in one big ladle. No mold? Dig a pit in the floor. Shape the sand mold in the ground. No crane? Multiple small cranes together. Ant gnaws the bone. So the whole casting shop became a construction site. A pit several meters deep, a giant sand mold of wood and sand, furnaces running day and night for 3 days to gather enough iron. And on casting day, I stood on the high platform and gave the word. Pour! Ladles of 1,000-degree iron tipped into the underground mold, flames to the sky, heat waves rolling, a volcano erupting indoors. And then it went wrong. One gate flowed too fast and the impact collapsed part of the sand mold. Landslide, which everyone knew meant the iron would drag sand into the casting and form fatal voids. Tens of tons of steel and coke about to become the biggest scrap in factory history. And the shop went dead silent. It's over. I knew this was too far-fetched. All that effort wasted. And worse than the loss, the morale that had just started rising cratered. And I stood over the steaming pit, fists clenched. Did not sigh, did not blame. I just stared at the sand and ran my brain through 21st century casting repair. Electroslag remelting, laser, cladding, all fantasies here. Until it snagged on my master fitter skill, repair, and a bold, almost insane idea landed. What if this isn't a ruined one-piece casting? What if it's a damaged piece of equipment to be fixed? Spread out, let it cool, I ordered. And while Gao and Fan came to comfort me about failure being the mother of success, I shook my head. Who said we failed? Let it cool, dig it out. Even if there are problems, they're not beyond repair. And Fan balked. It's tens of tons, not a small part. If there are voids inside, do we weld it? It'd crack under any load. And I just kept them hanging. Welding isn't the only option. I have a plan. Wait for the artifact to come out of the ground. And for 2 days, I ate, slept, and calmly ran the gear machine work like nothing happened. And my composure alone talked the whole anxious factory off the ledge. Then they dug out the steel behemoth, and it looked whole, but the devil's in the details. So I took a sledgehammer and walked the casting, tapping it, listening to the echo. Because my master skill reads internal density by sound. And I stopped mid-frame, chalked a big circle. Flaw detect here. And the ultrasonic detector shrieked. A large zone of loose material and sand, exactly where I marked. Defective casting. Confirmed. And then I gave the order that dropped every jaw. Cut that whole section out. Cut it out? Engineer Chen, that's load-bearing. Cut it and the machine snaps in two. Yes, cut it. Then recast a proper piece and put it back. Put it back how? And I chalked the answer. The insert heat fit method. Gas cut the defective section clean out. Recast a new patch, slightly oversized. Heat the huge frame locally so the opening expands. Chill the patch in ice water so it shrinks. Drop the cold patch into the hot gap. And as the frame cools and the patch warms, the interference fit binds them tighter than the original casting ever was. A seamless bond, stronger than the whole. And Fan stared at the blackboard. You can do that? While Gao, who understood none of the physics, just chose to trust me. Follow Engineer Chen's orders, gas cutting, now. And this time, nobody questioned it. Because I'd turned a tens of tons catastrophe into a repair job with a straight face, and they'd learned that when I sound certain, reality tends to agree. Days of cutting, recasting, finishing, then the moment. The notch heated red by dozens of torches, the new patch soaking in ice and salt water, breathing cold. And the crane lowered the frozen patch into the glowing gap. Sizzle. Thick steam, a piercing metallic shriek of contraction. And as the temperature evened out, the gap closed at a speed you could see, the two pieces melting into one. It worked. And the shop erupted 100 times louder than before, because they'd watched a death sentence reborn from the ashes. And when the assembled 800-ton press finally roared and stamped its first qualified tractor beam, 50-year-old Gao Jianjun hugged me and cried like a child. Not for one machine, for the whole factory finally seeing hope. And Fan wiped his glasses and managed, "I've spent my whole life in technology, and today I saw something new. What is wrong with your brain?" Because to him, the insert heat fit isn't engineering, it's art. And the rewards rained down. Gao raised my arm before the whole factory. The biggest contributor to all of this, Engineer Chen. Thunder. Guo Lei clapping his hands red. Then, 200 yuan bonus. A year's wages, gasps all around. Then, a factory-wide commendation, recorded in the factory history, an honor that chilled even the department heads. And then the real bomb, the one that turned admiration into burning envy. 2 temporary worker positions to place family or relatives in the factory. Because in 1959, the scarcest thing on earth wasn't food, it was a secure job. A state factory spot was something people fought tooth and nail for, and even a cleaning job gave a family status. And I just got handed 2. And the system chimed in too. Photographic memory skill, 1 permanent bicycle ticket, a supply pack, grain coupons, pork, cotton cloth, white rabbit candy, premium pastries. Photographic memory turns my brain into a library that swallows any blueprint whole. And a permanent bicycle ticket, in an era when a bike was one of the 3 essentials you couldn't buy even with money, is worth as much as the 200 yuan. And I bowed deep. This credit belongs to everyone at YN, not me alone. Which softened the resentful ones and made Gao nod. Brilliant and knows how to handle people. A real gem. But the 2 job spots are where the story shows its whole heart, because who I give them to tells you exactly who I am. The first spot, my mother. And when she protested, "I'm an old woman, I can barely read, I'll only embarrass you," I was firm. "Your illness came from overwork and bottling everything up at home. Now that you're better, you should get out. An easy warehouse job, light bookkeeping, people to talk to, movement every day. Better for your recovery than staying cooped up. And your son's a technician now. Who'd dare mistreat you? You working doesn't embarrass me. It makes me proud." My mother, a state worker on subsidized rations. Isn't that an honor? And her eyes reddened, her fear of being a burden dissolving. Then Mother Wang will listen to you. And the second spot, this is the beat that matters. When she tentatively suggested her own richer relatives, I shook my head. I wanted to go to Jiaming, from Uncle Chen's family, because when my father died and the family hit rock bottom, when even the close relatives kept their distance, afraid of being dragged in, only my father's brother, a poor, honest farmer named Chen Guangming, sent his eldest son, Chen Jiaming, dozens of miles on a rickety bicycle every few days to deliver a bag of dried sweet potatoes or a few cornbread buns. Small gifts, enormous meaning. Jiaming's honest and hard-working, just unlucky, stuck digging in the countryside, can't even find a wife. Now that we're better, we can't forget who helped us, repay even the smallest kindness tenfold. This spot is his, and Mother Wang burst into tears, because when her son made it, the first person he thought of wasn't the sycophant rich relatives now crawling out of the woodwork. It was the poor older brother who genuinely helped when it counted. Good child, your father can rest in peace. That's the moral spine of this whole thing. We climbed out of poverty, but the scales of decency stayed upright. And the comedy button on it. Next dawn, Mother Wang up early humming, too excited to sleep at the thought of being a worker. And Widow Guo showed up beaming a chrysanthemum smile, bearing 5 warm eggs wrapped in a handkerchief. Eggs, in 1959, a precious thing families hoarded to trade for salt and oil. and stingy Widow Guo giving them away was rarer than the sun rising in the west, because her information network had delivered the news. 200 yuan, 2 jobs, and she'd come to reposition. Sister-in-law, your Chen Wei's a big shot now. What luck. Remember? The day he reported, I said that boy had a bright future. Wasn't I right? And Mother Wong almost laughed out loud, because she vividly remembered Widow Guo mocking me at the door that day, saying my school spot was fake and I was too scared to go. So she said, deadpan, really, I don't remember. And Widow Guo's face stiffened, then re-smiled, revising her own history in real time. The eggs were a down payment, of course. She steered straight to it. About those 2 job spots, could you talk to Chen Wei, get one for my nephew? And Mother Wong was still dodging when I came out. I'd heard it all, and I shut it down with surgical politeness. Take the eggs back, Auntie Guo. My mother can't eat greasy food yet. And the spots are decided. 1 for my mother, 1 for my cousin. These matter too much to give an outsider. Not negotiable. And her face went red, white, green, like a dye shop, because there was no crack to pry. 1 spot to my own mother, unassailable. 1 to my country cousin, not forgetting your roots, equally unassailable. She'd gone all in with 5 precious eggs and got 0 opening. She fled, and Chen Yu made a face. You got rid of her in a few words, and Mother Wong laughed, finally avenged for years of the woman's barbs. And the cousin payoff is worth the trip. I took a half-day, rode the bus, and walked 5 miles of dusty ridge to Chen Family Village and my uncle's mud brick house, even more ramshackle than mine, where shirtless Uncle Chen Guangming and cousin Jiaming were chopping winter firewood. I brought flour, pork, and sugar, which they refused 3 times. You've just started work, take it back, until I forced it. If you hadn't helped us back then, the 3 of us might not have made it. Refuse, and you're looking down on me. And they teared up. Then I laid the red-sealed job letter on the table. The factory rewarded me 2 worker spots. Mother Wong took 1. The other, it's Jia Ming's. And the whole family stared at the paper like a red-hot branding iron. Uncle Chen Guangming picked it up with shaking hands, read it word by word, confirmed it truly said, "Introduce Comrade Chen Jiaming to report," and started trembling violently. Aunt Zhao Zhao Fun murmured, "A worker, eating government grain," and moved to kneel, and I caught her. And burly Jiaming dropped to the dirt and kowtowed, this grown man crying like a child. "Brother, I'll do anything for you." Because in 1959, a factory job doesn't change a life, it changes a bloodline. Jiaming had toiled the fields his whole life, couldn't even find a wife, and I just handed him a future. And that's the moral center, plain. When I made it, the first 2 people I lifted were my sick mother and the poor cousin who biked dried sweet potatoes to a starving family, not the rich relatives now bearing eggs. That night, the uncle's house cooked its most lavish meal ever, sweet potato liquor and braised pork, and the smiles were real. Then a warm stretch, folded into 1 beat, because it all says the same thing. Uncle Chen's family showed up hauling 100 jin of rice, dried sweet potatoes, peanuts, practically their whole harvest, and tried to hand me loose change and their own ration coupons so Jiaming wouldn't be a burden. Even asked if the boy could sleep in some cheap corner near the factory. And Mother Wong nearly cried with anger. "You're slapping my face. When we were starving, who gave us the last grain of rice? Say that again, and you're not family." And I stuffed the money back into my uncle's hand. Jiaming's my brother. Coming here is coming home. He and I share the West Room. Not another word. And the payoff the next morning. I walked my mother and cousin through the factory gate, and the guards snapped to attention and saluted. "Hello, Engineer Chen," leaving Jiaming stunned and Mother Wong standing straighter than she had in her life. And Section Chief Shu, who'd sneered at me on day 1, now leapt up to personally pour tea for Auntie Guo and brother and rush their paperwork. Mother Wong to the easy warehouse job. Big, strong Jiaming to the casting workshop, where the director slapped his mule-tough shoulder and welcomed him like gold. And that first workday, I took them to the factory canteen. A hall bigger than their whole village threshing ground, windows piled with snow-white rice and steamed buns, and, unbelievable to a country boy, meat every single day. And the canteen director personally waved them out of the line and heaped their bowls with extra braised pork on the house because Engineer Chen's family are honored guests. Big Jiaming, who tasted meat maybe a few times a year back home, stared at fist-sized pork chunks in his bowl with shaking hands. And I carried 4 more full lunchboxes home to the anxious uncle and aunt waiting at the alley mouth. And when the lids came off on glistening braised pork and white rice, the taciturn farmer just put his head down and shoveled, and Aunt Zhao Zhao Fun wept, this time from joy. Then Uncle Chen Guangming, worry finally lifted, told his wife to pack. We're farmers. Our roots aren't the city. Staying only distracts the kids. But before he'd go, he rolled up his bronze arms and spent his last morning fixing the woodpile and the loose fence gate. Because I won't eat and stay for free. That's the whole family in one gesture. They came, terrified of being a burden, and left having quietly repaired the yard. Decent people, top to bottom. Then, a slice of pure joy, because I'd earned it. I took the system's permanent bicycle ticket and a wad of cash to the county's biggest department store, to the bike counter, where a sunflower seed-chewing saleswoman lazily eyed my work clothes and sneered that the Forever 28-incher cost 160 yuan and a ticket. You got one? Meaning, don't waste my time. And I laid the permanent bicycle ticket and a stack of 10 yuan notes on the counter. And the seeds fell out of her hand. A permanent bicycle ticket? And she did a full 180, out from behind the counter, personally wheeling out the best bike, wiping the frame with a clean cloth, gushing about the finest materials, while the onlookers who'd chuckled at me now stared in raw envy. Which unit is this kid? When did the machinery factory get rich? Same currency, every time. Contempt for the poor, worship for the capable. And I didn't ride straight home. I rode the busiest street in the county. A young man in clean overalls on a gleaming new Forever, black lightning on a dusty road, 100% turn-of-the-head rate. Not to show off, to bring the joy home, especially to Chen Yu, who saw me roll up ringing the bell and lit up like a sky full of stars. A bicycle. And I took her for a spin, her silver bell laughter filling the alley, a little princess on the back of her big brother's bike, our shadows stretching long under the setting sun. Because this is what all of it is for. Not the vice governor's phone number. Not the 800-ton press. This. A mother touching a bicycle frame like treasure. A Mei laughing on the back seat. Braised pork on the table because we can finally afford it. I came into this world a corpse in a starving house, and a few weeks later my family has money, a job, a bike, and each other. The machines are the plot. This is the point. And even my day off had a cheat in it. Sunday before dawn, I dripped a rice grain drop of spirit spring water into a pot of earthworms, which writhed like they'd been injected with adrenaline and came out fatter and darker, irresistible bait. Grabbed 2 hand-whittled bamboo poles with cotton thread and bent needle hooks, and announced a fishing trip. And Chen Yu pouted at the pathetic gear. Will that catch anything? And Mother Wong suggested just buying cornmeal instead. Because everyone knew the county moat gave up a few tiny fish on a lucky day, and 2 broken poles catching a full load was a pipe dream. Just wait, I grinned, patting my chest. Today at noon, our family eats a whole fish feast. And I delivered. I biked the family to the moat, Mother Wong on the back, terrified then delighted, Chen Yu on the crossbar singing off-key, where the veteran fisherman took one look at my broken poles and wife and kid and snickered. Another greenhorn come to die. And then, my spirit spring worm hit the water, and the float sank in 10 seconds. And again. And again. Crucian carp after crucian carp, 7 or 8 in 10 minutes, like fishing my own pond, while the mockers went silent, and one crept over, begging for my secret bait, and Chen Yu planted her hands on her hips. No way, that's my brother's secret recipe. Then I cast the fattest worm into the deep for something bigger, and hooked a monster. The pole bent to a screaming bow, a 15-minute war that ended with a 30-gin wild blue carp, thicker than Chen Yu's calf, dragged onto the grass, while a dozen decade-long fishermen who'd never landed one over 7 pounds stood frozen, and I, gracious, gave all the small crucian away to the stunned crowd. Consider it making friends, flipping every last mocker into a devoted fan in one move. And the fish became a whole second face slap at home, because I dragged a fish half my height into the alley and the neighborhood detonated. Widow Guo, who'd cursed us off that morning wishing us empty buckets, dropped her vegetables at the sight of a water monster wider than a door, and I had Mother Wong keep the best middle cut and barter the rest to the neighbors. Eggs, cornmeal, cabbage, potatoes, turning the courtyard into a market and the Chen family into its beating heart. And when Widow Guo shuffled up with a sad little bunch of chives, Mother Wong, head high, back straight, triumphant for the first time in her life, handed her the smallest, fishiest belly scrap to make dumplings. The gossip who dealt in contempt got paid back in fish guts, exactly her own exchange rate. Family on its feet. So the story turns back to the machines, because the tractor is only the tutorial with a nice paint job. The boss fight is the engine. And the engine had a gatekeeper nobody could get past. Chief Engineer Fawn laid it out at the morning meeting like a man reading his own eviction notice. The crankshaft needs a tolerance under 1/100th of a millimeter. The cylinder liner needs an inside wall polished mirror smooth, or the whole thing leaks compression like a screen door on a submarine. And to hit numbers that small, you need a high-precision cylindrical grinding machine. The factory had exactly 0 of those. Not one broken one. 0. Fawn slapped his own thigh hard enough to leave a print, and basically announced the project dead, because the only grinders lived in provincial megafactories, and requisitioning one would take the rest of everyone's natural life. And I, who have now made "we'll build it ourselves" my entire personality, looked up from my tea. We'll build it ourselves. Fawn's soul left his body. This kid MacGyvered a gear hopper out of a lathe, resurrected an 800-ton press from the dead, and now wants to handcraft a precision grinder, the one class of tool the whole country treats like a rare artifact. He stared at me like I'd offered to knit a jet. Then I picked up a pencil, and the pencil did that thing where it turns a grizzled 50-year-old engineer into a wide-eyed apprentice. Take an old lathe with a good solid bed, the precision's already in the guideways, free real estate. Rip off the tool post. Bolt on a high-speed motor to spin a grinding wheel. And for the part that actually matters, the feed system that has to creep forward in slices thinner than a rumor, use a worm gear reduction with a graduated dial. Big ratio, tiny movement, micron control. And Fan leaned over the sketch, and you could physically watch the objection die in his throat, because it was unhinged and also completely correct. Gao understood none of the words and did not care, because he'd learned the pattern. I draw a crazy picture, the crazy picture becomes a machine, the machine makes the factory famous. He committed on the spot, paced twice, called me the factory's lucky star for the 9th time, and floated out narrating a headline where Huaiyan goes famous across the whole country. 2 days later, he'd strip-mined a bankrupt instrument factory in the provincial capital for a high-speed precision motor, and came home clutching white corundum grinding wheels like a bouquet. Just add engineer. I drew the full conversion blueprints overnight, every tolerance nailed cold, because photographic memory means the reference manual lives behind my eyes. Enrolled the elite Workshop 1 crew out of bed. 3 days. Turn this tired C620 into a high-precision grinder. And the veterans squinted at the worm gear feed and made that sucking air through teeth sound old craftsmen make right before they tell you it can't be done. And then Guo Lei, sweet, feral, ride-or-die Guo Lei, physically snatched the blueprint and rounded on the old man. What's so hard? Engineer Chen's blueprints are never wrong. If he says a worm gear can be cut, then it can be cut, and I'll cut it myself. From who's the new guy to I will die for the new guy in 2 weeks. Respect. The whole workshop turned into a battlefield, and I moved through it like a commander who can hear a machine misbehaving across the room, because I can. Bigger chamfer on that gear, or it'll bind. Watch your milling speed. That housing wants a mirror finish. Guard the lead on that worm. Every micron feeds straight into final accuracy. Never once looked at the blueprint. The blueprint is inside me. Then, disaster, because you can't have a build montage without one. The heat treat guy botched the quench on the core worm gear, and it came out too soft and warped, the metallurgical version of failing the exam and throwing up on it. Guo Lei held the corpse with a face the color of skim milk, and I strolled over, measured it, and went, "No problem," in the tone of a man ordering more tea. Make another, cut it 5/100ths oversize. Then I turned to old Master Zhu at the furnace and calmly rewrote his entire craft. Drop your oil temp 10 degrees, cut 2 seconds off the quench. And Chen bristled. This is experience work, kid. You don't put numbers on a feeling. And I just said, trust me, in a voice that closed the topic like a book. Another day, another night. Second worm gear out of the oil. Perfect hardness, perfect dimensions, flawless. And Master Shu, a man who read Quench by gut and campfire vibes his whole life, grabbed my hand and couldn't get a word out, because he'd just watched a feeling get calculated to the degree and the second. 3 days later, the thing stood assembled in the center of the shop, beautiful the way only a hand-built machine is beautiful. The heavy old lathe bed, and where the tool post used to be, a fresh grinding head, and beside it, a delicate little gearbox with a hand crank and a dial. Industrial punk. Power on. The motor screamed up, the white corundum wheel blurred into a silver afterimage whistling clean, and I turned the crank and felt the head creep at a speed the naked eye can't catch. The earthen mill lived. The sharpest scalpel in the county, built out of a dying lathe and pure spite. But a test spin proves nothing. The real exam was a crankshaft, the hardest, most sacred part of the whole engine, and not a practice one. Gao had begged this blank off a Meimei factory across the province, and if we ground it to scrap, nobody knew when another would show. And I, holding the single most expensive lottery ticket in the building, turned and handed it to Guo Lei. He nearly fainted.
Me? Engineer Chen, this thing's priceless, I'll wreck it. And I clapped his shoulder. I trained you, I trust you, I'll be standing right here. Go. Because I don't hoard the glory moment, I shove my terrified apprentice into it and stand behind him like a spotter. Small bites, I coached, 200ths a pass, watch the sparks, even and golden. The wheel kissed the spinning crankshaft and threw a fountain of sparks, and the whole room stopped breathing. Stop. Measure. 75.08 millimeters. 800ths off, which in grinding means basically there, just wants a shave. Beautiful, I said. Again, 100th deeper. And Guo Lei's hands stopped shaking. A dozen more whisper-thin passes, and the old tech measured it 3 times because he didn't trust his eyes, and announced it like he was talking in his sleep. 75.00. Tolerance plus minus 5,000ths. Surface finish, my God, a mirror. The workshop detonated. Higher precision than the Soviet grinders could hit, somebody yelled, and Fawn stroked the glossy journal with gloved hands and openly cried, muttering that this ugly homemade contraption was the treasure of the whole factory. We'd hand-built a tractor crankshaft in a county shop on a grinder made of a dead lathe. That's the whole appeal of industry in one part. Take stubborn, ugly iron and sculpt it into a heart precise enough to move a nation. The heart's finished. Now let's build it a body. Once the crankshaft dropped in, the factory stopped being a building and turned into an organism. Bore the cylinder, grind the shaft, cast the block, finish the pistons. Both homemade miracle machines ran non-stop, and one after another the impossible precision parts fell out of rough hands like it was easy. It was never easy. It just looked easy because I was everywhere. And I mean everywhere. I basically stopped going home. Slept in the workshop, prowling casting to machining to heat treatment, like an inspector who never clocks out, catching micron flaws with my naked eye that a machine would need a lab to find, filing hundreds of blueprints in my head like photos. Half a month. That's it. Half a month later, the final assembly hall was packed shoulder to shoulder, every director and master craftsman staring at a clean steel frame, and on it, a brand new diesel engine, finished, all in black, compact and mean and radiating power. The heart of the Dongfeng Hong 59. I did the final check in fresh white gloves, moving like a surgeon on a life-or-death operation. Every bolt torque, every pipe joint, methodical and silent. And the hall was so quiet you could hear people trying not to breathe. And Gao, who bet his entire future on this exact machine, finally cracked. How's it looking? I tightened the last oil line and looked up. Every part built to the best standard we can hit. Theoretically, no problems. And Gao clenched his fist, said one word, good, and threw his arm at the test crew. Start it.
Now, starting a diesel in 1959 is not a button. It's cardio. The veteran test worker jammed a thick crank lever into the flywheel and started heaving by pure muscle. Clang, clang, clang. Slow, heavy, sweat blackening his shirt. A dozen hard revolutions, and when he'd wound it to his top speed, he screamed, "Loose!" And the assistant popped the pressure valve. Pff, pff, pff. 3 sad little coughs of black smoke. The engine shuddered twice, muffled thumps, the mechanical equivalent of a very sick man clearing his throat. And then, nothing. Dead silence. Back to the tomb. It failed?
That thought dropped into every chest like a chip of ice. Fan's face went from excited red to corpse white in 1 second, and he actually swayed on his feet, because he'd cried over a crankshaft an hour ago, and now his whole world was making the wrong noise. Which was no noise. Don't panic. My voice cut the room clean. I walked to the engine, laid a hand on the still warm block, and diagnosed it without blinking. Totally normal for a new engine to no start the first pull. Air in the fuel system, the supply isn't smooth yet. One more time. And the test worker nodded hard, eyes full of pure faith now, and grabbed the lever again. Clang, 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 faster, harder, veins standing out like cables, up to the limit, loose. The valve dropped. Pff, tap, tap, tap. The engine coughed, hurled out a fat plume of black smoke, and this time it did not die. A frantic, heart-slamming put, 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 the huge flywheel grabbing its own inertia, the beat smoothing out of the stumble into a rhythm, and then the put-put suddenly dropped an octave and fused into one deep, heavy, explosive roar. Rumble, rumble. A blast of air punched out the exhaust, and the whole floor trembled under the sound of the steel animal waking up. The flywheel spun a wind through the hall, driving the fan, driving the water pump, every part suddenly moving in fierce mechanical harmony. And the room came apart at the seams. We did it! Nobody knew who screamed it first, because everybody screamed it. Grown workers hugging in their own oil stains, veteran craftsmen grinning while tears cut clean lines down sooty faces. And Gao, 50-something, famous across the plant for iron authority, threw himself on Fan and bawled like a kid who got the exact toy he wanted. Old Fan, did you hear that? Our Huayan can build engines now. Then Gao turned it into a ceremony, because the man knows a legendary day when he's standing in one. Today goes in the history of this factory. We built our own engine with our own hands. And then the part everyone feels in the stomach. Every worker on the engine project gets 10 yuan cash and double meat coupons this month. 10 yuan is over half a month's pay, and the cheer nearly took the roof off. Then his eyes found me, and his voice went solemn. The biggest contributor is Comrade Chen Wei. And he dropped the number, an additional 300 yuan, cash, plus official appointment as chief commander of the entire tractor project. 300 yuan when a regular worker clears maybe 300 or 400 in a year. And I did not let it go to my head. I took the mic and gave it back. The engine isn't my win alone. It's all of us. Without Guolei and the frontline crew, without Fan and the old masters, a blueprint by itself does nothing. So I'm taking 50 of it and handing it to the canteen director, and every worker in this factory is getting a celebration banquet. Meat, wine, the works. And the cheer that went up basically lifted the building off its foundation. Because a young man who does the impossible and shares the reward collects loyalty faster than money. And right there in the roar, that familiar little chime went off behind my eyes. Ding! Stage mission complete. Manufacture the heart of a tractor. Evaluation? Perfect. And it did not skimp. Master-level driving skill, all-terrain, which means I can now pilot anything with wheels or treads on site. 1 advanced physical enhancement agent, a mystery bottle I filed away to study at home, and a proficient diesel engine maintenance manual downloaded straight into the brain. The timing was so perfect, it was almost rude. Then the banquet. Director Zhao, the canteen boss, took that 50 yuan like a sacred trust. Big pot braised pork belly tender enough to fold, whole steamed crucian, stir-fries, mountains of buns, 2 bottles of liquor on every table. And Big Jiaming got demolished. 3 bowls of wine deep, tongue gone soft, volume cranked all the way up. He slammed the table and pointed across the room at me. That's my cousin, my own cousin. Barely 20, and he designs engines. The boss just handed him 300 yuan. I've never seen that much money in my life. This mountain of a man never forgets who got his family out of the hole. At home, the softer version. Mother Wong sat on the Kong holding a stack of cash thicker than any she'd touched in her life, hand shaking. And I peeled off $250 and folded it into her palms. Mother Wong, this is mine to give, and you have eaten enough bitterness for a lifetime. Save some for you's tuition. Buy thick new quilts before the cold lands. Keep the rest and buy whatever you want. And she cried again, held my hand, and told me the greatest blessing of her life was having me for a son. And next door, comedy, because Widow Guo could not sleep. She lay there marinating in 300 yuan of pure envy until she cracked, dug a plate of fried peanuts out of the cupboard, and marched over at bedtime to grovel. Your auntie fried these specially for you. I knew exactly what the peanuts were, a down payment. So I took them, said a flat, "Thank you, Aunt Zhao Fan," and the second she opened with, "Your auntie has a small favor," I told her it was late and I had an early shift and shut the gate in her face. And then, being petty in the most wholesome way possible, I dripped 2 drops of spirit spring water on her peanuts and carried them in to Mother Wong and you as a bedtime snack. The favor bribe repurposed into a health tonic for the family she used to badmouth. Chef's kiss. The next morning, Gao called me in with the grave face and slid a county document across the desk. A county-wide industrial conference, 1 month out, and Huai'an's tractor project was going to be the showcase piece. Which meant the tractor didn't just need to exist in a month. It needed to roll, work, and perform on demand in front of every leader in the county. 1 month, from "we have an engine" to "we have a working machine that cannot embarrass us in public." And I did the thing that separates an engineer from a hero, which is, I'd already solved the schedule before it was a problem. I'd broken the whole tractor assembly into 12 independent chunks, engine mount, chassis, hydraulics, electrical, all of it, that could be built in parallel and married on the final line. Cut the timeline in half on paper before a single bolt turned. And then I walked straight into the day's crisis, because you cannot cross this floor without tripping over one. A knot of worried veterans stood around a scatter of black rubber rings, 7 or 8 of them, sliced clean like somebody took a knife to them. Hydraulic seals. Guo Lei held one up, gutted. Install it, pressurize the oil, and inside 3 minutes, it bursts. And these weren't the cheap ones. This was the best rubber in the building, special supply stock bagged off the provincial steel factory, and it was popping like balloons. No seal, no hydraulic lift. No lift, and the tractor is a very heavy red lawn ornament. I squatted, picked up a shard, rubbed it, and diagnosed it in 4 seconds. Rubber's too soft, can't take the high-pressure hit. Standard material was never going to survive. And then my previous life coughed up the answer. An internship at a chemical plant, a modified rubber cooked from scrap tires with sulfur and a catalyst, tougher and tighter than anything on this floor. Simple recipe. The whole game is in the proportions and the cook time. Keep pushing the other 11 sections, I told Guo Lei. I'll handle the material. And I walked off to the warehouse to raid the junk pile. A few scrap tires, a bag of sulfur, a can of lube oil, literal corner-gathering dust garbage. Borrowed a little iron stove off the casting crew, found a quiet corner, and started cooking. Cut, weigh, proportion, cook. My hands moving like I'd done it 1,000 times, even though it was the first. Because master fitter skill hands you an unfair instinct for materials. And the corner filled with an eye-watering stink of melting rubber and sulfur, and workers detoured past me, pinching their noses, muttering to ask what kind of demonic pill Engineer Chen was refining over there. 2 hours later, I pulled a blackened cake out of the fire, sliced a corner, squeezed. Springy, smooth, dense. Done. 2 days later, the new seal went on the hydraulic system for the pressure test, and the whole shop crowded the oil line. 5 kilos of pressure. 10. 15. The seal sat there not moving, not weeping a single drop, completely unbothered. And Guo Lei slapped his thigh and the shop erupted, and Fan stared at the ugly little black ring with open admiration and called me a treasure for the 40th time. Ask me what a whole county does the day a factory that couldn't hit its quotas last month rolls out a tractor better than anything the province has ever built. Remember Guo Deming? The section chief who tried to sabotage me early and got busted down to warehouse duty for it? Turns out getting demoted didn't make him reflect, it made him marinate. And in his little pickled brain, every bad thing in his life traced back to one person: me. So when he found out my mother, sweet, careful, brand new to the job Fan Shufan, was keeping the bolt ledgers in that same warehouse, he saw his opening. Can't reach the son, hit the mother. The setup was ugly and simple. Mother Wong stepped out to the restroom for 10 minutes, and in that window, the only window, and everybody would later confirm only Guo Deming was lurking near the shelves, he snuck in, altered her ledger, and walked a whole batch of brand new M12 bolts out the door. When the count came, the book said 500 and the shelf held 5,000, a gap of 4,500 bolts, which in factory terms isn't an oopsie, it's a major production accident. Warehouse director Su Shu-ying, all warm smiles up to now, went cold. The receiving slip says 5,000. You signed it. The numbers don't match. That's on you. And Mother Wong's hands shook as she pointed at the ledger. She remembered writing 5,000, and now, staring at it, she saw the ink on that 500 was a different color than the rest of the page. But she couldn't make herself say it, because who on earth believes a widow claiming her books got magically edited? And then the ghoul himself sauntered in, teacup in hand, smirk pre-installed. Guo Deming doing his absolute favorite thing, twisting the knife while pretending to muse. Some people look honest, tisk tisk, but who knows? A widow and her kid, life's hard, easy for crooked thoughts to creep in. Even Shu Xiaoying told him to shut up and get out, but the poison was in the water. Mother Wong got suspended pending investigation and walked home gutted. Because she'd finally had one clean thing that was hers, and someone was reaching into her ledger to take it. Little Yu held her crying mother and said the only thing that could hold the room up. "Don't be afraid, Mother Wong. My brother will fix it." And that faith wasn't misplaced, because when I came home to red eyes and a heavy house and got the story out in pieces, I didn't rage and I didn't spiral. My face just went still, and the machine behind it started turning. 5,000 bolts is a deliberate frame. Different colored ink means the book was edited. Only Guo Deming was near the shelves. I already knew. I just needed to prove it in a way the factory couldn't wave off. So I did it the boring, airtight, unglamorous way. Confirmed the ink with my own eyes. Confirmed the 10-minute restroom window with my own questions. And then I did not try to win the argument in the room, because you don't beat a frame with vibes. You beat it with a paper trail. I walked to the security department and laid it out for old Chen, a straight-arrow factory lifer who agreed the whole thing smelled wrong, because Mother Wang was famously meticulous and quietly put people on it. The trap sprung itself, the way greed always does. Within days, security clocked Guo Deming skulking in and out of the warehouse and, tellingly, nosing around the scrap metal yard. And my stomach dropped, because that was the crux. I told old Chen, hit the scrap recycling station, and there it was, proof he'd fenced a batch of brand new M12 bolts. Confronted with hard evidence, the ghoul folded like the wet paper he was and confessed everything. Broke in, altered the ledger, stole the bolts, framed the widow, all to get back at the kid who cost him his cushy title. Mother Wang was reinstated on the spot. Shu Xiaoying apologized to her face. The factory came down on Guo Deming hard. And I came home and got to deliver good news for once. And Mother Wong hugged me and cried the good kind of tears again. And little Yu jumped up and down, shaking my hand. I knew you'd clear Mother Wong's name, brother. I knew it. The guy who tried to hit my family through its gentlest member learned the lesson everyone here eventually learns. You don't reach me by going through the people I love. You just hand me a reason. A month evaporated. The final assembly hall burned its lights past midnight every night, the crew grinding overtime to hit the county deadline, and I basically lived on the shop floor babysitting every step. And then, one exhausted night, right as I was about to collapse into bed, somebody hammered on my gate. Workshop director Zhang Aiguo, gray-faced and breathless. "Chen Wei, we've got a problem. A freshly assembled tractor just stalled mid-test run." I didn't even grab my coat. Ran into the icy night behind him with my heart in my throat, because the engine is the heart, the thing the whole factory bled for, and it had stopped beating 1 month before showtime. Zong panted out the story on the run, fired it up in the shop, Ran gorgeous for 5 minutes, thunder in a box. Then, a few sputters, and it died. Won't restart. Fan and the veterans have been on it for hours. Checked the fuel, checked the electrical, pulled and cleaned the plugs. Nothing. Dead as a stone. We burst into a hall thick with diesel stink and dread. The brand new Dongfeng Hong 59, painted bright red, sat there like a beautiful corpse. And Guo Lei spotted me and yelled like a drowning man spotting a rope. Gao grabbed me with dry lips and a cracked voice. "You're finally here. What's wrong with it?" And Fawn, clutching a greasy wrench, said the quiet part out loud in the most miserable voice a proud man can use. Could it be one of our parts? Could we have blown a tolerance? Because every part of that engine was hand-ground by these men. It was their pride. And the idea that their skill had failed was worse to them than the broken machine. I didn't answer fast. Walked a slow lap around the tractor, eyes sweeping the engine, brain cross-referencing the good run against this dead one. "Don't panic," I said, and the room breathed. "Guo Lei, crank it. I want to hear it." The starter turned over weak and dull, a few limp coughs, black smoke, no fire. Enough. I'd already heard it. Not a hard mechanical jam, no grinding of something stuck, softer than that, wrong in the pressure. I bent and sniffed the exhaust. Strong diesel, so fuel's arriving, but it's burning incomplete. Not the circuit, not a clogged line. Then I said the thing that made Fan flinch. "Bring me the tools. I'm pulling the high-pressure fuel pump." And Fan balked. That's the single most delicate organ in the whole engine. The plunger clearances are cut in microns. It just went in. Tearing it out is a nightmare to reseat. "Didn't matter. It comes out," I said, in the tone that ends discussions. Because the weak start and the black smoke were textbook symptoms of a high-pressure pump not making pressure. And that made no sense, because my blueprint numbers were perfect, and Guo Lei's grinding was checked to death. Unless... A possibility flickered, and I needed to hold it in my hands to be sure. I pulled the pump, laid it on a clean white cloth, and took the little heart apart with slow surgical hands, every screw and spring in a neat row like a man who'd done it 1,000 times in another life. Last piece out, the plunger assembly. A plunger thinner than your pinky and the sleeve that hugs it. I rolled it between my fingers and my brow snapped down. Slid it back into the sleeve, capped one end with a fingertip, pushed. Felt a little resistance, then a whisper of a void that shouldn't be there. Found it. The clearance between the plunger and its sleeve is too big, and the room revolted, politely. Fan put on his reading glasses, studied the pristine parts under the light, shook his head. Impossible. I watched Guo Lei grind these, measured 20 times on our best micrometer, held inside the 100th millimeter the drawing demanded. And Guo Lei went red and swore he didn't blink the whole time. And I did the thing that makes a leader instead of just a genius. Told them the truth without breaking them. You did nothing wrong. The drawing said 10 microns, and 10 microns is brutally tight for almost any part on Earth. But for the plunger in a high-pressure pump, 10 microns is a canyon. Because this little rod has to slam diesel to hundreds of atmospheres in a heartbeat, and under that pressure, fuel behaves like water, seeping through a 10-micron gap that looks airtight at room pressure, like it's an open door. Enough leaks pass that the injection pressure collapses and the engine can't fire. Hundreds of atmospheres. Micron leaks. Concepts from a world these men had never visited. So Gao, half technician himself and fully out of his depth, asked the only question left. How small does the gap have to be? I held up 2 fingers, 2 micrometers, 0.002 millimeters. Dead silence. Then someone did the math out loud that turned the silence into despair. A human hair is about 70 microns across. 2 microns is less than 1/30th the width of a hair. Fan nearly dropped the plunger. That's not something a human can do. Take it to Beijing. Put it on their best German grinders, and even they might not guarantee it. And Guo Lei's face went ash gray, muttering, it's over, we can't make this. The hope drained out of the room like someone pulled a plug, and I looked at all those crushed faces and asked the question the whole story had been building toward. Who says it can't be done? Others can't make it, I said, gaze sweeping the room. Doesn't mean Huaiyan can't. We've built machines nobody else has. I held up the plunger. I'll grind it myself. On that homemade cannon we cobbled out of a dead C620, tonight. And I'll hit 2 microns. It should have been a lunatic sentence, challenging a precision German machine tools might miss on a grinder made of scrap and spite. But Gao looked into eyes that held zero bluff and remembered every miracle I'd already made real, and something in him caught fire. He slapped his thigh and roared that the whole factory would follow my orders, that they'd punch a hole in the sky tonight if that's what 2 microns cost. Fan threw down his wrench. Guo Lei stepped up, eyes full of guilt and worship. "Tell me east. I'll never go west." In one breath, the despair was gone, and the crew was lit. And I took the little plunger and strode toward Workshop 1 with an army of grease-stained believers falling in behind me like men marching to war. Deep night, Workshop 1, and the earthen mill stood there, waiting to either birth a miracle or become the punchline of the year. I walked up, took a breath, told Guo Lei to spin the wheel up and let it idle 10 full minutes to preheat. Then I closed my eyes and just listened. Master skill maxed out. Every micro vibration of the wheel and every ball rolling in every bearing painting a live 3-dimensional map in my head, accurate to the micron. 10 minutes later, I opened my eyes. Good. Clamped the plunger, thinner than a cigarette, into the chuck, and the whole crew backed off a few meters and stopped breathing. And here's where master machinist means something closer to sorcery. I didn't measure. Real grinders measure and adjust 100 times. I laid my bare left hand flat on the machine bed to feel the vibration coming up through the iron, and turned the feed wheel with my right, creeping the spinning wheel toward the spinning plunger at a speed the eye can't register. The wheel edge kissed the workpiece. Sst. A spray of sparks, tiny as fireflies, flashing out and dying instantly. Contact. And Guo Lei's hand shot reflexively for the coolant valve, because Rule 1, the first thing his master ever taught him, is grinding heat warps the part if you don't cool it now. "Don't move," I said, without turning my head, and his hand froze in the air. Fan saw the danger too, and opened his mouth, and Gao stopped him with one look. "Don't speak. Just watch." Because I wasn't forgetting the coolant. I was riding the heat on purpose, feeling the thermal expansion through my fingertips and folding it into the math, using the part's own warmth as part of the cut. Eyes shut, left hand reading the bed like braille. I was listening to individual grains of abrasive shave individual layers of metal, and answering with adjustments of the giant hand wheel so small, 1,000th of a turn, a 10,000th, that they stopped looking like machining and started looking like prayer. 5 minutes, 10, half an hour. The only sound the steady hum of the wheel. 3 factory bosses frozen behind me like statues, everybody feeling like they'd wandered into a sacred rite by accident. Then my right hand stopped. I opened bloodshot eyes lit way too bright and said, "All right." Killed the motor, pulled the workpiece, and the little plunger shimmered under the light with a flawless mirror gloss, like it wasn't metal anymore, but a thing carved out of obsidian. Fan lunged first, hands trembling, took the plunger, grabbed the sleeve, slid one into the other, and jolted. Because it wasn't loose, and it wasn't stiff. It was that impossible in-between, a slick, airtight glide, like the 2 parts had been machined out of the same breath. A veteran of 40 years stood there, turning it over like an excited kid, muttering, "Absolutely amazing, absolutely amazing." Gao couldn't feel the micron poetry himself, but one look at Fan's face told him it was done. He grabbed my shoulder, hunting for words, and landed on the only 2 that fit. Well done. I was running on empty, because that kind of extreme control burns the brain like a furnace, so I just waved at starstruck Guo Lei to quit gawking and run it back to assembly before the sun came up. We reseated the pump with the whole crew crowded around, tightened the last oil line right as the sky went pale, and I wiped my hands and told everyone to back off 5 meters. Then I climbed into the driver's seat myself, keyed it to power, waited a beat, and cranked it hard. 2 turns of the starter. Pff, pff, 2 fat plumes of black smoke like a giant sneezing, and then boom! A roar tore through the workshop, bigger and steadier and meaner than any test run before it, the floor trembling under the sound. The engine was alive, and the shop came apart. Grown men hugging and jumping, veterans crying into greasy sleeves, Gao's knees actually buckling until Fan caught him. Old Fan, we did it. Huayan factory is saved. And I didn't even shut it off. I dropped it into gear, feathered the throttle, and the red Dongfang Hong 59 rolled forward like a woken beast, first light pouring gold through the tall windows across its body. Nobody in that room will forget that morning as long as they live. The factory whistle screamed dawn across the whole county, and the news outran the sunrise. Over in Yong'an Lane, Mother Wong had woken early, gut-knotted because her boy got dragged off at midnight and never came home. And then she heard the alley buzzing. The machinery factory blew up last night? No, the tractor. It's finished, thundered at midnight, loud enough to wake everyone near the plant. Her ears snagged on tractor, and she flung the gate open, and a neighbor lit up. Congratulations, Sister Chen. Your engineer Chen led the crew that got it running. It stalled and the whole factory panicked, and he worked it all night and fixed it by dawn. And the worry just fell off her face and got replaced with the specific glow of a mother who used to hear only sarcasm in that alley, and now hears her son's name said like a blessing. 9 a.m, black jeeps rolled through the factory gate. County Party Secretary Wu leading a whole convoy. The county head, the industry deputy, every bureau chief in the district. Wu popped out first, a short, energetic guy in his 50s with eyes like drill bits, grabbed Gao's hand, cut straight to it. Old Gao, you shocked me on the phone. Where's the thing? Show me. We marched to final assembly, and every leader's eyes locked onto the red steel behemoth in the center, cleaned overnight to a showroom gleam. Wu circled it twice, going, great, great, already better looking than the clumsy rough tractors he'd seen in the province. And Gao puffed his chest. Secretary, this isn't for looks. Our comrade Chen Wei designed it independently, and the performance is top tier in the whole country. Then a deputy county head grinned and said the sentence that turns a sales pitch into a trial. Stop talking. Let's see it. And here's the thing. Most of these leaders came up through actual war, so a big mechanical roar hits them somewhere primal. They cleared a test field, and somebody had thoughtfully built a 30-degree dirt ramp at the end of it. Because nothing says prove it like a hill. Test 1, plowing. In winter. Wu, being a little bit of a menace, specifically said the ground's frozen solid right now. Perfect time to see what it's got. Workers hitched a monster 5-furrow plow to the back. I dropped the shares into rock-hard permafrost with the hydraulics, shifted to first, eased off the clutch. The big rear wheels bit, zero slip, zero hesitation, and the tractor walked forward like a tireless iron ox and peeled frozen ground open like it was tofu. Half-meter deep trenches, black clods rolling off both sides. And the leaders lost it. They'd seen tractors plow soft dirt. Watching one shred winter ground with a 5-furrow plow and not even strain was straight up unheard of. Wu squatted, picked up a turned clod, squeezed it, hard as a rock, stood up and shouted, "This skill alone makes your tractor remarkable." Test 2, the flex, literally. Gao grinned and told all the leaders to climb onto a flatbed trailer so they could feel the hill climbing power. A blunt deputy jumped up first, then 20 or 30 officials piled on, and Secretary Wu planted himself at the front rail for the view. Now do the math the crowd was doing. Trailer plus 30 grown adults is easily 3 or 4 tons, aimed at a 30-degree slope, and everyone's stomach was near their tonsils. I blipped the throttle twice, dropped to a low gear, fed the clutch. The body dipped, 4 tires clawed in, and the whole loaded trailer went up the slope, slow and dead steady, engine roaring louder but not losing a hair of speed. A bull with its head down, taking the hill one stubborn step at a time. Under a minute, top of the ramp, clean stop. The workers below erupted, and up top an official yelled he couldn't even feel the slope, wasn't swaying at all, and Wu pounded the rail and declared the tractor a hero of Huayan County. Then the hydraulic lift dandled a several 100-kilo plowshare up and down like a toy. More applause, and then came the party trick that broke even the non-engineers. They laid rows of uneven stakes across the ground to fake a brutal washboard road, and I drove over it, and while all 4 wheels bucked with the ground, the cab and body stayed eerily flat. One worker, primed for this, had set a teacup full of water on the hood. and after the whole bumpy crossing, the water just wobbled a little and did not spill a drop. Independent suspension, technology straight out of the future, sitting on a county tractor in 1959. And even the guy in the room who knew the least about machines could suddenly see it. Wu jumped off the trailer, grabbed my hand, and said the thing that changes a young man's whole trajectory. "Your name is Chen Wei. I'll remember you. You've made a great contribution to the mechanization of Huayan in the whole country." And I deflected it clean onto the leaders and the workers. Not arrogant, not impatient. A promising talent, Wu noted with approval. Then he turned to every cadre present and made it policy on the spot. Today we witnessed a miracle. A factory with junk equipment produced the most advanced tractor in the country by pure grit. And I'm compiling a report to the city and province. We're commending the tractor, the factory, and talents like Comrade Chen Wei. Thunderous applause, Gao and Fan openly leaking tears, and in the corner, somebody was taking notes. A plainly dressed, middle-aged man who looked like an ordinary worker was quietly filling a little notebook with every performance detail and every quote, then pulled out a seagull camera and clicked off crisp shots. The hill climb, me in the cab, Wu and Gao beaming in front of the machine. He was a reporter from the provincial capital's Jianglin Daily, and his nose was telling him a small county was about to become a very big story. The factory partied all afternoon, firecrackers from noon on, the canteen splurging on extra, braised pork for every single worker. And when the reporter Zhang Peng sat me down for a proper interview, asking sharp professional questions about design philosophy, I did the move I always do. Gao was winding up to sing my praises, and I beat him to it. Thanked the leaders for clearing every obstacle, thanked the workers for turning blueprint lines into precision parts through nights without sleep, and parked myself in the humblest chair in the room. Zhang scribbled fast and admiring, because he'd interviewed a lot of technical stars, and most are credit-hogging blowhards, and a young genius who hands the glory to everyone else was genuinely rare. Meanwhile, up in the provincial capital, the mood was the exact opposite of a party. Somebody had put the Huayan report and the newspaper write-up in front of the industrial department bosses, and Deputy Director Zhang tapped the table. A county shop, less than 3 months, a tractor with specs this advanced. What do you make of it? And the room did what rooms of experts do to news that makes them look bad. It got skeptical, fast. One section chief pushed his glasses up and basically called it fan fiction. Independent suspension, hydraulic lift, 2-micron machining, sounds like a fairy tale. The provincial first tractor factory has the best experts in the province. They've been copying a Soviet model for years, and they still have unsolved problems. Another chimed in. We all know what Huayan is. A few clapped-out old machine tools. They're padding the numbers to fish for funding. The whole meeting curdled into this is a scam. Except the report carried the county committee's official stamp, and the reporter was a senior provincial journalist, and those two don't usually team up to lie. And then the director, silent the whole time, finally spoke, and he had the only correct instinct in the building. True or false, we Vialookies. Conveniently, they'd already planned a province-wide new tractor selection to pick this year's designated production units, so he made the call. Move it up, to next week. Summon everyone, the provincial first and Little Huayan both, prototypes on the field, and we'll see who's real. Then he dropped the part that turned a bureaucratic bake-off into a war. The winner doesn't just become a designated production unit. The winner gets a special technical upgrade fund from the provincial finance department, 100,000 yuan. The room gasped, because that's not money, that's a small fortune with its own weather system. Huayan, the county nobody believed, had just been invited to a duel it didn't ask for against the province's flagship for a pot of gold big enough to remake it. 3 days later, the summons hit Gao's desk, and he was not thrilled. Next week? The provincial capital? He slammed the doc down in the emergency meeting. The province doesn't trust us. They want to drag us out for a public fight. And Fan read it and got serious. Our opponent's the provincial first. Their Pioneer number 1 is a flawed machine, but it's a copy of a mature Soviet design. The foundation's solid, and our Dongfang Hong is brilliant, but brand new and unproven over the long haul. Real concern. And I just leaned back with the calm of a man holding cards nobody else can see. What's there to be afraid of? Our tech is a full generation ahead, and I trust our quality. We'll find out on the field anyway. My confidence was contagious enough that Gao's worry melted, and he banged the table. We're not just going. We're going to go spectacularly, outdrive that Pioneer number 1, and bring home the 100,000. The whole factory mobilized, and in the casting workshop, director Guo Tianyu found Big Jiaming and clapped his boulder of a shoulder, grinning. You made this workshop proud. A lot of the tractor's key castings were poured under your lead, and the quality's top-notch. I've officially put in your permanent employment paperwork. Jiaming scratched his head and mumbled, "It's just what I should do," and Guo gave him the truest compliment a foreman can give a strong man. You're only short on brains next to your cousin, but you're just as strong. You'll be a pillar of this factory. The temporary worker label the whole family sweated over back at the start? Falling off, earned by 2 tons of hand-poured iron. And I made sure my cousin came along for the big show. Brother, you're coming to the provincial capital with me. And Jiaming blinked. Me? I don't know anything about technology. Who says you don't? I laughed. You're the skeleton builder of these tractors, and there might be heavy lifting, so you're our ballast. I grabbed Duolei, too, as technical rep, in case we needed on-site teardown. Before dawn the next morning, the gate was already buzzing. The Dongfang Hong wiped spotless and winched onto a big Jaifeng truck bed, roped and wedged like a sleeping baby we were terrified to bump. Me, Guolei, and Jiaming piled into the factory's one jeep, and Gao gripped my hand and gave me the whole weight of it. You're carrying the hopes of hundreds of Huaiyan workers. Don't feel the pressure. Just show them what you can do. The convoy rolled out into the dark, and after a day and a half of bone-rattling road, reached Jianglin City on the 3rd morning. Big city lights fried the brains of Guolei and Big Jiaming, 2 country boys who'd never seen a road that wide. And we got parked in the provincial government's 2nd guest house. First thing, I dragged them out to babysit the tractor. No road damage, thank God. And right on cue, a rival truck rolled in, hauling a big, green, Soviet-looking slab of a machine. Provincial First Tractor Factory, stamped on the door. And out of it waddled the villain, fully formed, no assembly required. A 40-ish guy, soft in the middle, hair slicked back like an oil spill, leading a little entourage of sycophants. Director Luo Jian, boss of the Provincial First, and he opened with the country bumpkin routine. Is this the Dongfang Hong you people keep hyping in the papers? All flash, no substance. Small county junk can't survive a real look. His goons laughed on command. And Big Jiaming, who personally poured half the castings in that machine, went red and started rolling up to introduce Zhang's face to his fist, and I caught his arm. Then I handled it my way, which is to say, cold. This must be Director Zhang. Whether our tractor's any good isn't decided by talk. The selection will answer that. And Zhang sized me up and cranked the contempt to 11. You're Chen Wei? A vocational school kid? Are you even fully grown? Our Pioneer number 1 is a strict Soviet blueprint copy, impeccable pedigree, and yours is a patchwork of scrap. Go home and farm before you embarrass yourself. Then honked out a triumphant laugh and led his ducklings away. And Guolei stomped and demanded to know why we couldn't just let Jiaming deck the fat guy, and I shook my head. Hitting him fixes nothing, and the louder he barks, the more scared he is. We do our thing. That night, though, I made a phone call that told you who was really scared. Before we left, Gao had passed along a number for a Secretary Zhao with instructions to check in on arrival. And Secretary Zhao, gentle as ever, dropped the quiet bombshell. Vice Governor Xu has a meeting in the morning, and he'll swing by around 10 to look at your machine personally, out back of your guest house, so be ready. Vice Governor Xu, the same provincial big shot I once saved from choking on a train with a Heimlich, back before any of this. The universe keeps stapling that favor to my file. Guolei nearly levitated, and the 3 of us spent the night buffing the tractor by the dim lot lights until the red paint threw back our own reflections. 10 sharp, a black Volga pulled up, and out stepped Vice Governor Xu, spry and grinning. Comrade Chen, we meet again. You told me on that train you were going to build a tractor, and I never dreamed you'd do it this fast and this loud. He stroked the cold red body like a jewel, gasped it was more beautiful than any tractor he'd ever seen, and I seized the moment and walked him through it in plain language. Independent 59-horse engine, high torque, low fuel burn.
independent suspension for stability on garbage roads, a fast, strong hydraulic lift for big implements, and Shu's eyes lit brighter with every sentence because he understood exactly what he was hearing. A county shop had no business producing this. This was a technological revolution wearing red paint. He turned, suddenly stern. Tell me straight. Did you develop all this yourselves? Did you copy any foreign tech? And I stood up ramrod and answered loud. From the first bolt of the engine to the last steel plate of the chassis, every drawing done independently, zero foreign reference. Shu stared me down for a few seconds, then slapped his thigh. Good. This is the technology our country needs. This is the backbone of national industry. And then Shu did the thing that made his security detail sweat. Start it up, he said. I'm driving it. A provincial leader wanting to personally pilot a homemade tractor. If he so much as bruised a knee, nobody in 3 counties could carry the blame, and Secretary Zhao and I both froze. Shu glared. You think my old bones can't take it? I drove tanks in the army. This little thing's nothing. Argument over. I walked him through the controls, then perched on the fender beside him, ready to catch a catastrophe, which never came, because Shu picked it up fast, shifting clean, feathering the clutch, and after 2 laps was ripping cheerful S-turns, while Guo Lei and Jia Ming whooped. He hopped down, flushed and delighted, slapped a tire, told me it was even better than he'd imagined, powerful, nimble, that suspension unreal. Then he turned to Secretary Zhao and said the sentence that was really aimed at me. Note this, the selection will be fair, just, transparent, decided on facts and performance, best tech and best product win, and I will not tolerate seniority or local protectionism. A provincial vice governor, quietly putting his thumb on the scale for fairness before the fight even started, because he'd already seen enough. 2 days later, the province-wide selection kicked off at the Agricultural Machinery Research Institute test field, packed with leaders and experts from industry, agriculture, and finance, plus reps from every major factory in Jianglin. 5 or 6 brand-new tractors sat in a row, representing the best the province could build, and 2 of them sucked all the air out of the field. The provincial first's Pioneer No. 1, big and clumsy and rough, and our Dongfanghong, sleek and mean. A museum piece parked next to a sports car. Presentations first, in the conference room. Zhang Dehai took the stage, clutching a phone book of documents, and monologued for over half an hour, spit flying, about how Pioneer No. 1 was a strict copy of the Soviet Union's most advanced T-40. Every parameter at international standard, robust integral axle, unstoppable in harsh terrain, shooting me provocative little glances the whole time. Then it was my turn, and I walked up with nothing in my hands. No documents, just me. Distinguished leaders and experts, our Dongfanghong 59 is based on no foreign model. It's designed and built entirely by our own people. That opening alone rippled through the room, because in 1959, we didn't copy anyone was a borderline outrageous flex. I laid it out clean and systematic, and when I hit independent suspension, an old expert raised a hand with the polite skepticism of a man who's read the literature. Young man, can this really keep a vehicle stable on rough ground? That tech is brutally demanding, and as far as I know, it's only in military vehicles in a few Western countries. And I didn't get defensive. I got calm. You're right, expert. It's genuinely hard, but we solved it with optimized structure and improved process, and the field demo later will answer better than I can. Zhang leaned over on his way past and hissed one more time. Kid, you've got nerve. Wait till the test field. My Pioneer's a real man that gets work done. Yours is just for show. I ignored him and walked to my machine, which is its own kind of insult. Test 1. Maximum traction. There's a force measuring platform. Chain the tractor to it, floor it. The meter reads your peak pull. Pioneer went first, Zhang driving personally, stomping the gas, the green machine roaring, deafening, all 4 wheels clawing, the whole body shaking like it was having a seizure. And the number settled at 3.2 tons. Solid. The experts nodded. That beats most domestic models. And Zhang climbed out, strutting, and threw me a look that said, follow that. Then it was our turn, and I drove it exactly the opposite way. No stomping. Smooth into low gear, throttle up gradual, the engine note going from deep to that full, there's more where that came from, growl. The body dead still, all 4 tires glued to the earth, pumping torque into the ground.
The meter started climbing and didn't stop. 2.5 tons, 3.0, 3.5. When it ticked past 3.2, Zhang's exact number, his face changed. And the needle kept going and finally locked, rock steady, at 4.1 tons. The whole field lost it. 4.1, almost a full ton over Pioneer number 1 from the unknown small factory. And Zhang went the specific purple of a man watching his life's work get lapped, muttering, "Impossible, absolutely impossible," unable to compute how his high horsepower pride lost to county scrap and lost this badly. And I just stepped out, didn't so much as glance at him, and walked straight to the next test, that silent nothing more humiliating than any gloat, Zhang's nails carving into his own palms. But the fat man wasn't done coping. He had a plan, he thought. Next up is hauling through mud, and my machine is heavy with a high chassis. Let's see your pretty toy handle that. Somehow forgetting that 10 minutes ago he'd been sneering at peasant workshops, and was now betting everything on out-peasanting them in a swamp. The final test lived on the city outskirts in a spot the Institute had willingly nicknamed the Muddy of Despair. Used to be a real swamp, now a 100-meter extreme testing pit of sticky mud, knee-deep at the worst of it, and the task was to drag a 2-ton iron block clean across it. Test power, sure, but also tire grip, chassis clearance, weight distribution, the whole design at once. Years of tractors had come here to die, hence the name. Even the leaders frowned at the black, bubbling muck. People can barely walk it, one said. How does anything drag 2 tons through that? Zhang Dahai, though, looked at the swamp and saw his comeback stage, because heavy machine plus wide tires plus high chassis is genuinely a mud build. He volunteered first, eager to buy back the face he'd left at the traction platform, hitched Pioneer to the iron block, and bellowed to the crowd. Watch closely, this is real off-road, before flooring it and charging in like a bull. And for the first 10 meters, chef's kiss. Mud flying 3-4 meters in the air, Pioneer bulldozing forward on pure momentum, the experts on the bank nodding, real Soviet-style muscle, and Zhang pressing harder, glowing. Then he reached the middle, where the mud goes deepest, and physics sent its invoice. All that weight stopped being an asset and became an anchor. The wheels sank, the inertia bled out, the roar went from confident to desperate. Zhang panicked, sawing the wheel, hunting for grip, and the tires just spun in place, throwing mud everywhere, while the machine moved exactly 0 inches. "Move!" he screamed, drenched and red, and the once majestic Pioneer number 1 sat there like a beast swallowed by the swamp, then coughed twice and stalled dead under the load. The experts who'd been nodding a minute ago quietly closed their mouths. They had to bring in a tracked bulldozer to drag the flagship and its iron block out. By the scruff, filthy and humiliated, and Zhang, soaked, mud-caked, freshly bulldozed out of a swamp, still had the nerve to turn to me and sneer that if the mighty Pioneer couldn't cross, my little toy could forget it. Everyone stared at our red Dongfeng Hong, hearts in throats, Pioneer's faceplant fresh in memory. Guolei's palms were rivers. "Engineer Chen, you got this?" "Don't worry," I said, and climbed in. But I didn't charge. I sat a second and read the pit, the depths, the mud, the exact tracks where Pioneer drowned, brain plotting the cleanest line, while Zhang jeered that I was dawdling because I was scared to go down. Then the Dongfeng Hong rolled in, and its engine didn't rage like Pioneer's. It hummed steady and composed, a martial arts master with deep internal strength. Low-range, 4-wheel drive, unhurried, no charging. And the miracle everybody paid to see. The 4 wheels did not spin, because the independent suspension let each one ride its own height and angle, always keeping max contact and grip, so the torque actually reached the ground instead of digging a grave. The body barely rocked, steady as a paved road, and the tractor walked the 2-ton block forward 1 solid step at a time. At the deep middle it slowed. The crowd stopped breathing. Zhang silently praying, "Get stuck, get stuck." And I just eased the wheel to skirt the worst pit, fed a little more throttle, and the engine dug up a deeper reserve and filled through the kill zone and kept going. Front wheels hit solid ground on the far bank, and the field exploded, experts shouting that independent suspension was the natural predator of bad terrain. Zhang stood frozen and gray, beaten completely, No excuses left in the tank. I parked clean on the far side, killed the engine, hopped down into the sun looking like a general who'd already won the war. Because I had. No suspense left in the results. At the summary meeting, Deputy Director Zhang announced it flat. Unanimous expert evaluation. The Dongfang Hong 59 from Huai'an County Machinery Factory takes first place, becomes one of the province's first designated tractor production units, and receives the 100,000 yuan Technical Upgrade Special Fund. The room thundered. I stood and bowed, Guolei and Jiaming beside me clapping till their hands ached, and Director Luo Jian was, notably, nowhere to be found. That evening, Vice Governor Xu walked straight to me at the celebration banquet, with a raised glass and a booming voice. Today you and your Dongfang Hong taught us all a lesson. You showed me the future of Jianglin industry. I toast the self-reliant spirit of Huai'an factory. And drained it in one pull. Every department head and factory boss lined up to clink glasses with me, and my real prize wasn't even the 100,000. It was that the entire provincial leadership now knew my name and Xu's parting line. Comrade Chen, the province's doors are always open to you. Worth more than any fund the finance department ever cut. Back in Huai'an, Gao Jianjun had been chewing his own stomach lining for days, and when the phone finally rang and Deputy Director Zhang's shaking with joy voice came through, Old Gao, congratulations. Your Dongfang Hong won first place. Gao's brain just went white static. Say that again? He croaked. I didn't hear you, thinking he'd misheard. You're number 1, champion, Zhao laughed, and your kid Chen Wei gave the provincial first a proper thrashing. 4.1 tons a pull, dragged a 2-ton block out of the muddy of despair. Vice Governor Xu toasted him personally as the hope of provincial industry. Oh, and the 100,000's yours, plus designated producer status. And Gao's hand shook harder and harder on the receiver, until he wasn't just excited. He was full body trembling, tears rolling down without permission, because their little run-down nobody factory had just beaten the well-funded flagship of the whole province. He hung up and ran laps around his office like a decapitated chicken, crying and laughing at once, then threw the window open and screamed, "We won!" into the dark factory yard, loud enough to wake the district. Lights blinked on one by one, and within minutes, he dragged every cadre in the plant out of bed into the conference room. Fan shuffled in, yawning. Old Gao, what's wrong with you at this hour? And Gao slammed the table and recounted the whole call word for word. Dead silence. Then Zhang Weimin stammered, Old Gao, are you drunk? And Gao's eyes bulged. Vice Governor Zhao said it himself. Xu attended the banquet. How could it be fake? And the room detonated. Number 1, 100,000. We're regular army now. And steady old Fan grabbed Gao's hand, babbling. I knew Engineer Chen could do it. The kid's a genius. We struck gold. Then Gao got his commander voice back and started firing orders like a man who'd waited his whole life for this exact night. Publicity, banners overnight. I want the whole factory a sea of red by morning. Make the words huge. Canteen, half-day holiday tomorrow. Haul every scrap of meat out of the warehouse. Every worker eats meat and soup. Security, dig out every firecracker and drum we own. The second our heroes hit the county line, we ride out to meet them. The whole county will know. The room roared back so hard dust fell from the roof. Nobody in that factory spent. Over in Yonggan Lane, a neighbor pounded on Mother Wang's gate. Sister Chen, wonderful news. Your boy did something huge. She pieced it together from 3 excited, contradictory retellings and just sat on the edge of the bed, stunned. First in the province? Provincial leaders? 100,000 yuan? It sounded like a dream, so she raised her hand and slapped herself, and the sting proved it real. Her son, her sensible, hard-luck boy who ate so much bitterness. A hero of the whole factory, the whole province. The good tears came again, and when little Yu woke rubbing her eyes, asking, What's wrong with brother? Mother Wang hugged her tight and choked out, Your brother brought honor to our family. He's a great hero. And at the mouth of the alley, Widow Guo's light was on too, her face flickering through about 6 emotions at once, muttering, That poor Chen boy. Did he really become a big shot? The cope of a woman recalculating a decade of bad bets in real time. Before dawn, the factory was a red ocean, banners everywhere, workers scrubbing the streets on their own initiative, a gong and drum team and a wall of firecracker-holding young men staked out of the gate, staring down the county road. And Mother Wang and Yu stood squeezed in that waiting crowd, Mother Wang smoothing her clothes over and over so she wouldn't shame her son, while neighbors who used to whisper now lined up to tell her how lucky she was. Then someone screamed, "It's here!" And a black dot swelled into the Jiafeng truck, and Gao grabbed a megaphone and roared, "Ready!" And the drums crashed and dozens of firecrackers went off at once, louder than Spring Festival. Guo Lei tumbled out first. Clean work clothes, giant red flower on his chest, wine flushed and grinning ear to ear. Then Jiaming, also flowered, this mountain of a man completely bewildered by the crowd, hands and feet not knowing where to go, just beaming that dopey, honest grin. And last, me, still in my well-fitted blue overalls, spine straight, a faint smile, wearing the same big red flower as the others, but standing calm and composed in all that noise, somehow the stillest, brightest thing in the whole roaring frame. 21 years old, and the entire county came out to drum a vocational school kid home like a returning general. Not bad for a guy who, a few months back, transmigrated into a starving family with a dying mother and a temporary worker cousin and one absurd system whispering, "Build something." Gao and Fan grabbed a hand each and pumped my arms like they were trying to draw water, Gao's eyes red, patting my shoulder hard enough to check I was real. "Good lad. You didn't let Huayan down. You brought honor to the whole county." And I deflected it, as usual, just did what I was supposed to. But my eyes were hunting the crowd, and they landed on my mother, wiping happy tears, and little Yu waving both arms off. I nodded at them, and that was the moment the whole thing paid for itself. Family safe, family proud. Then Gao bundled the three of us into a jeep dripping with colored ribbons, and the convoy rolled toward town through a wall of drums and firecrackers. The whole county had caught fire, streets jammed with people who'd dropped everything. Workers, farmers, cadres, students, waving little red flags, shouting, "Welcome back, heroes. That's Chen Wei. They say he's only 20. Inside the jeep, Jiaming pinched his own thigh to confirm he wasn't dreaming, and stared at me with pure worship. That's my brother. My own brother. And Guo Lei, chest out, waving like a maniac, was living the single smuggest day of his life, dying to grab every stranger and inform them, "See that? That's my master." The convoy rolled into a factory, drowned in red banners, and near every worker in the place stood in neat rows with red flags, and when I stepped up onto the makeshift stage, the square detonated and stayed detonated. Gao got up with a tin megaphone, face flushed, and told the story of Huayan, from struggling nobody shop to provincial champion, well enough to leak tears out of the veterans. Then he announced the honors, and the crowd stopped breathing. Comrade Chen Wei, chief commander of the project, awarded first-class merit, commended factory-wide. The square went nuclear. I stood there, taking the loudest affirmation of my life, and honestly, I'd earned every decibel. Then Gao looked down at the big man in the ranks with a grin. Comrade Chen Jiaming hasn't been here long, but outstanding in the casting workshop and the tractor project. Hard-working, a model for every worker, effective today. Promoted from temporary to regular worker, 32 yuan 50 a month, level 2 standard. The casting crew lost it. Jiaming made permanent in a few months, all on raw skill. And Jiaming himself just froze, brain buzzing, the words unable to land. Permanent worker, a government job. His wildest dream coming here was to not embarrass me and pull a temp's dozen yuan a month, and now his pay had multiplied and stuck. Eyes wet, he thought of his parents back in the village, breaking their backs for a few work points. A coworker had to physically shove him. "Jiaming, go, the director's calling you." And he stumbled up on stage and couldn't finish a sentence, just bowed over and over. "Thank you, factory manager. Thank you, leaders. I'll work like crazy." Which got the whole square laughing, the good kind of laugh. And I watched my cousin shake and was flat out happy for him. Because this wasn't just Jiaming's win. It was Gao quietly telling my family, the factory takes care of its own. I filed that favor away too. I keep a very careful ledger of kindness. Here's the one I'm not going to crack a single joke over, because it doesn't need one. That night, Jiaming didn't even eat dinner. He dragged me down and begged me to write a letter to his parents. then carefully unwrapped his handkerchief, the 20 yuan bonus plus his month's pay, over 50 yuan, and pushed it across the table. "Count it," he said. "Keep enough for my food this month. Send the rest home." Next morning, no rest. He hauled me to the supply and marketing cooperative and hovered at the fabric counter forever before gritting his teeth and buying 5 feet of tough blue khaki for his father and 5 feet of small flowered cotton for his mother. 10 plus yuan and a stack of cloth coupons gone, and not one flicker of regret on his face. Then a pound of fruit candy. Then straight to the post office. He set the oil paper package on the counter, cloth and candy tied tight with hemp rope, and gave the address. Chen Family Village, to Chen Guangming. The clerk quoted the postage, took his money, slapped on the label, picked up the letter to stamp it. And Jiaming said, "Wait, could I look at it one more time?" The clerk, a line forming behind him, sighed and handed it over. And he held it in 2 hands that could lift 1,000 pounds of molten iron without shaking. And those hands trembled, because I wrote the words, but Jiaming had spoken every one of them. "Father, Mother, I'm doing fine in the city, well-fed, sleeping soundly. The factory made me a permanent worker, 32.5 yuan a month. I'm sending 50 yuan this time, and cloth, and candy. Make yourself some clothes. Try the candy. From now on, I'll send money every month. Don't be stingy with yourselves. Eat well, dress well. Your son has been unfilial, made you worry all these years. It gets better now. Jiaming." November 15th, 1959. He remembered last autumn, his father coughing up blood, chasing a few more work points. His mother selling their only hen for his travel money. Him lying on the kang, listening to them sigh in the next room, feeling like the world would be lighter without him in it. And now he could make money. Now he could hold his family up. He handed the letter back, turned his broad back to the window, and scrubbed his face hard with the back of his hand. "Send it," he said, a little hoarse. The postmark came down with a click, and the clerk tossed the package into the mailbag, and the man who never flinched at a ladle of molten iron stood there with his throat closed, watching it disappear. I patted his shoulder. "Come on, brother." Outside, it had gone full dark. Jiaming took a few steps, stopped, looked back at the post office sign, asked if Mother Wang and Dad would be happy to get the package. Of course. Won't Mother be too sentimental to use the cloth? Won't she just fold it away? "Then send more next month," I said, "until she has to use it." And Jiaming grinned, all white teeth in the dark, and said, "Yeah, right after next month's pay." That's the whole reason I transmigrated into a broke 1959 family and moved heaven in a lathe to build a tractor. Not the metals. This. A strong man crying at a mailbag because he finally gets to be the one holding everyone up. Meanwhile, Mother Wang was living her own quiet glow-up in the warehouse. Before the province trip, people were polite to her out of respect for her son, but at arm's length, new lady, from the countryside, not much in common. Now, her boy was a provincial hero who dragged home 100,000 yuan and designated production status, and overnight she went from Engineer Chen's mother to the hero's mother, which in factory terms is a promotion of its own. The warehouse women swarmed her like bees on honey. "Sit down, Sister Joe. I'll do that. Have some jasmine tea. Tell us, did your Engineer Chen meet a lot of big officials?" And even blunt Director Shu Xiu-ying grabbed her hand, beaming that the warehouse wasn't a retirement home anymore. It was where hidden talent lives. They had a hero's mother on staff. And Mother Wang had become a storyteller. Cornered at lunch to retell the selection meeting, she cleared her throat and delivered it note perfect. Because she'd heard me and Guo Lei tell it a dozen times, and now performed it herself. The mighty Pioneer #1, bogging down and stalling before the halfway mark, doing a dead-on impression of Guo Lei's gloating voice. And then, my Chen Wei drove our Dongfang Hong across smooth as flat ground, dragging 2 tons of iron the whole way. And at the banquet, Vice Governor Shu toasted him personally as the hope of the province. Imagine the face that gives us. The warehouse gasped and swooned on cue. The dull, quiet countrywoman from a few months back now held a room, radiant with the confidence her son's success had loaned her. Then, right on schedule, a chipped enamel mug floated through the door. Widow Guo, the alley's premier weather vane, who had officially completed her 180 from town gossip-in-chief to full-time bootlicker. She sidled up, fishing. I heard the factory gave engineer Chen a 500 yuan bonus. My goodness, so impressive. Thumb up, face doing entirely too much. And Mother Wong gave her a thin smile and a flat, "Those are the factory's rewards," because she has fully clocked the Widow Guo operating system. Kick you when you're poor, lick your boots when you're rich. Not worth a single sincere word. Undeterred, Fawn pivoted to her real play. "Say, isn't your Jia Ming a permanent worker now? Decent salary, not getting any younger. Shouldn't he think about marriage? My niece is so pretty and hardworking." And Mother Wong cut her off mid-pitch. "We've got Jia Ming's business handled. Don't trouble yourself." Because she still remembers this woman trying to trade a fistful of rotten vegetable leaves for a whole piece of fish, and a matchmaker with that track record isn't selling a niece. She's angling for a permanent worker paycheck. Nice try. Gates closed. What landed on my desk next wasn't a threat. It was a math problem. The 100,000 came through, and right behind it a provincial order for 500 Dongfang Hong 59 tractors. Money, got it. Task, got it. One tiny issue. Under the way the factory currently worked, everybody building a whole tractor by hand, start to finish, one machine took 10 days to 2 weeks. 500 of those would finish sometime around the heat death of the universe. So I stood up at the committee meeting and named it flat. Efficiency's the problem, and this won't do. And because my word was now factory gospel, the whole room leaned in when I walked to the blackboard and wrote 3 phrases that were about to blow their entire worldview. Standardized production. Assembly line. Performance-based pay. Standardization means every part comes out identical to a molded one, same tolerance every time, so any part fits any tractor. Assembly line means you chop building a tractor into dozens of tiny steps, and each worker owns 1 or 2. Your group mounts wheels, that group bolts the gearbox. Everybody repeats their move until they're fast. And I sketched a line on the board, chassis in one end, finished tractor rolling out the other. And then the grenade. I slapped the chalk down. The most important part is performance pay. Kill the everybody gets the same system. Piece rate, daily targets per group. Beat the target, you get a bonus. Botch the work, you rework it and lose the bonus. Who dare slack? Who wouldn't want to earn more? Dead silence. Because in 1959, in a state factory built on the Iron Rice Bowl, get paid more for doing more, get docked for doing worse, wasn't a policy. It was heresy. The production section chief hedged. Our veterans are used to building a whole machine themselves. Will they really be happy just tightening one screw? Another worried nobody would be accountable. Decades of habit versus a blueprint from the future. I didn't argue. I just looked at Gao, and Gao slammed his fist on the table. Works or not, we find out by trying, and from this second, the whole tractor project runs Engineer Chen's way. Anyone who drags their feet answers to me. 200% trust, no notes. So I proposed a pilot. Workshop 1, a handful of open-minded young workers plus a few willing veterans like Guo Lei, 1 model line, 1 goal. Build a tractor in a single day, and let everybody watch the new way lap the old. We tore Workshop 1's whole layout apart and rebuilt it into a long line, and I designed simple genius tools from future memory. A special torque wrench so every screw gets the exact same tightness. Positioning fixtures so parts seat perfectly without relying on a veteran's feel. Guo Lei ran the line, leading a dozen hyped-up young guys, while a crowd of arms-crossed veterans stood watching to enjoy the train wreck. Building tractors is serious work, not kids' play, one scoffed. 1 man doing 1 job, that's not a skilled worker, that's a screw tightener, sneered another. And I let them talk. Next morning, the line started. A red chassis dropped at the front by crane. Group 1 slapped on the axles. Group 2 dropped in the engine and transmission. Group 3 linked the drive shaft. Clumsy at first, then, because each job was dead simple, visibly faster with every repeat. And the heckling veterans slowly stopped laughing because they were watching something uncomfortable. 0 wasted motion. Every worker planted at 1 station, running the most efficient version of 1 move. Nobody sprinting around hunting anything. And those fixtures were witchcraft, a part that used to eat a master craftsman's time to align, now dropped into a jig and seated perfect. Engine in by 10, cab hoisted by noon, all 4 tires on by 3. And at 5, when the knockoff bell rang, a brand new Dongfang Hong 59 rolled off the end of the line, gleaming red. Under 8 hours. Bare chassis to finished tractor, when it used to take 5 days minimum. The veterans rubbed their eyes and refused to believe it. That speed's terrifying, one whispered. And Guolei's crew were soaked and wrecked and glowing, because they'd just made history. I patted the cold hood, turned to the stunned room, and dropped the mic. Starting tomorrow, every workshop runs this standard. Everyone on today's line gets a 5 yuan bonus, and beat your target for more. Boom! The place erupted. Efficient, and it pays. And the veterans who'd been sharpening jokes an hour ago were now quietly, deeply regretting their material. With the line running, the whole factory spun up like a wound clock, and the casting workshop, source of all the parts, got its workload multiplied several times over. Which is exactly the environment where Big Jiaming becomes a cheat code. Everyone else lugged one sandbox and wheezed. He carried 2 at a time and walked like nothing was happening. Everyone else wheelbarrowed the pig iron. He picked 100-pound blocks up in his bare hands and moved them like bricks. And he wasn't just strong, he was relentless and humble, always first to finish whatever director Guo Tianyou assigned, done flawlessly, then off helping somebody else. The shop stopped calling him Engineer Chen's brother out of politeness and started calling him Brother Jiaming out of genuine love. So when an aging team leader stepped down and left a slot open, Guo Xiang marched to Gao and asked to make Jiaming team leader. Gao blinked. Kid's only been here a few months. Is he up to it? And Guo thumped his chest. Strong, tireless, and smart. And if it weren't for him, the whole shop would have eaten the molten iron disaster that one day. Nobody in there dares cross him. Approved, but talk to Chen Wei first so it doesn't look like favoritism. Guo hauled Jiaming into his office and did the unthinkable. Poured the man a glass of water, then hit him with it. You're promoted. Team leader of casting group 2. 7 or 8 people under you. You're a manager now. And Jiaming nearly dropped his enamel mug, leaping up. Director, are you kidding? I'm a country guy who can barely read. I can't be a cadre. No, no, no. He'd cheerfully lift anything on earth, but managing people terrified him. And Guo glared it right out of him. I say you can, so you can. Did you forget what your brother told you about working hard? The chance is here and you're chickening out? You don't need speeches, just lead. Report the good ones for credit. Chew out the slackers. You're strong and honest and everyone trusts you. That's the best management there is. And something clicked, because Jiaming remembered me telling him respect takes strength and brains and responsibility, and realized backing down would shame both the director and me. He clenched a fist and nodded hard. I'll do it. I won't let you down. That night, I wasn't even a little surprised, just clapped his shoulder. Good thing, brother. It's the factory recognizing you. Don't be scared. Lead by example. Be fair. Help whoever's stuck, and they'll respect you. And that's exactly the leader Jiaming became. A shy team boss who barely talked, but instantly jumped in when anyone fell behind. And when somebody hit a technical wall, he'd clumsily just demonstrate it until they got it. Group 2 quietly became the most productive team in the workshop, because working next to Brother Jiaming made you want to be better. Pay bumped him to level 3, 38 yuan 60 a month. So tally it up. Permanent worker, cadre, good salary, tall, handsome, honest, hardworking. In 1950s Huai'an County, that's not a bachelor. That's a 5-alarm marriage prospect, and every mother-in-law within radar range locked on. And Mother Wang's favorite hobby became sitting in the warehouse, listening to the women rank her 2 sons. Engineer Chen's a heavenly being, obviously, and Jiaming's the reincarnation of a pagoda-bearing heavenly king, a team leader over 7 or 8 people, bright future. And somewhere in the flattery, it clicked for her. Jiaming's 23. Back in the village, guys his age have toddlers underfoot. It's time. The second she floated it at work, she kicked over a hornet's nest. My niece is 18, just finished high school, gorgeous. My uncle's niece works in a textile mill, perfect for Jiaming. Kind-hearted women elbowing each other to matchmake, and Mother Wang was overwhelmed and secretly thrilled because everyone wanting to marry into your family means your boy really made it. And the news reached Widow Guo in about 2 days, and her eyes went green. I was an eagle in the clouds, unreachable, but Jiaming, wasn't he just a bumpkin, and now he's a hot commodity? She drank the equivalent of 3 pounds of aged vinegar, and then the gears turned. If she married a relative to Jiaming, she'd be kin to the Chen family, and even if I slipped through her fingers, that connection alone could carry her whole household to the good life. So the next evening she cooked a plate of chive and egg from her own garden and knocked with a smile wide enough to give everyone goosebumps. Mother Wang saw through it instantly. Unsolicited kindness is a trap or a sales pitch, but Widow Guo cut to it. Heard you're finding Jiaming a partner. Well, what a coincidence. I have a distant niece, Guo Chunmei, 19, 1 in a million, fair as a painting, cooks, launders, embroiders, gentle, virtuous, basically a fairy who fell out of heaven. And here's the thing, it kind of worked, because Widow Guo aimed the pitch perfectly. Mother Wang actually got tempted, reasoning a quiet, gentle girl would balance her quiet Jiaming, and Widow Guo pressed the exact right bruise. Jiaming's honest. He needs someone soft and obedient. Marry him someone strong-willed and she'll run him ragged and split the brothers apart. That landed, because keeping the family close was Mother Wang's whole fear, so she agreed to a meeting. And when Jiaming and I got home and heard blind date, Jiaming went red to his collarbone and waved both hands. I don't want to go. I can't even talk right. And Mother Wang glared him down. Then, learn. How old are you? Want to die a bachelor? It's settled. I stayed quiet and just smiled. I had zero faith in anyone Widow Guo was selling, but Jiaming genuinely needed the reps, or a good girl someday would get scared off by all that silence. So I told him, listen to Mother Wang, go take a look, count it as a mission. And Jiaming, who obeys me above all, nodded a deeply reluctant yes. Saturday, 9 in the morning. Widow Guo came swaying through the gate with the merchandise. A girl of 18 or 19, pink polyester shirt, black pants, 2 long braids, and, credit where due, genuinely fair and pretty. Exactly as advertised, except timid, head down, dodging every eye. Mother Wang warmed right up, took her hand, led her in. And inside stood Jiaming, planted like a fence post. And the second the girl walked in, his face went nuclear red, and his hands and feet forgot how limbs work, and he finally squeezed out a, "You, hello," in a voice like a mosquito with a cold. Guo Chunmei flinched and hummed even quieter at the floor, off to a blazing start. Mother Wang tried to save it. Jiaming, don't just stand there. Pour the girl some water. And this is where the strongest man in the factory, a man who catches tipping cauldrons of molten iron with his shoulder, picked up a thermos and betrayed himself completely. Hands shaking so bad that half the boiling water went in the cup and half went across the table, a few scalding drops landing right on Guo Chunmei's hand. She yelped and yanked back, and Jiaming absolutely lost it. Sorry, didn't mean it. Dropped the thermos and grabbed the hem of his own shirt to wipe her hand. And before his calloused, metal-smelling paws even reached her, she recoiled so hard she nearly went off the chair. The temperature in the room hit absolute 0, and Widow Guo's face went green, the sales pitch dying in real time behind her eyes, one thought screaming across her forehead. This isn't honest. This is a complete idiot. Mother Wang hauled Jiaming away, handed the girl a clean, damp towel, apologized for her rough boy. And then came the conversation, which was less a conversation and more a hostage situation. Mother Wang fishing. Chunmei, I hear you do embroidery? I whispered a little. Mother Wang winking daggers at Jiaming to ask what pattern she likes. And Jiaming, face going purple with effort, ground his molars and produced the single worst possible sentence a man can offer a girl who embroiders. Embroidery. It hurts the eyes. Little Yu, spying from the doorway, straight up snorted out loud, and I had to drag my Mei off, caught somewhere between dying of second-hand embarrassment and pure love for this absolute disaster of a cousin. Guo Chunmei went pale, certain now that Jiaming was disgusted by her, and Widow Guo read the room, dropped the act entirely, yanked her niece up mumbling Chunmei wasn't feeling well, and blew out the gate like a gust of wind before Mother Wang could get a word in. Door barely shut, Mother Wang slapped her own thigh. You blockhead! You numbskull! How did I ever think a stump like you would see the light? And Jiaming stood there hanging his head like a scolded kid, genuinely wounded, because in his mind he was showing concern. Embroidery really is bad for the eyes, and look how it turned out. And of course, the whole compound had it inside half a day. The Chen family's team leader scared his blind date off, couldn't say a word, spilled boiling water on the poor girl, a man who hauls 1,000 pounds of iron, rendered speechless by one 19-year-old. Hilarious, tragic. Shame that too honest is its own kind of broken. Jia Ming became the compound's newest punchline and hid for days, ducking straight inside after work, waiting for everyone to finish eating before he'd sneak out for dinner. And I just consoled him, brother. It just means she wasn't the one. When the right girl comes, she'll like you even if you never say a word. Which helped a little, though the big man moped for a solid week anyway. The system, for once, offered no reward. There is no skill scroll for talking to girls. Autumn rolled in, and little Yu turned 7, school age. At dinner, Mother Wong brought it up worried. The best school in the county is the factory's own ZD Primary. Good teachers, free tuition, but I hear you need connections to get in. And she said it with the flinch of a woman still not sure the world owes her anything. Because in 1959, a good factory school was brutally competitive, reserved for regular workers and cadres kids. And even though Mother Wong was staff now, she didn't have the confidence to believe her daughter wouldn't get squeezed out. Jia Ming, bless him, immediately offered to go beg his director Guo for help. And I just put down my chopsticks and smiled.
Mother Wang, brother, this is nothing. Don't ask anyone.
Then what do we do? Mother Wang fretted. And I, she said, casual as ordering tea. I'm the connection. Which, when you're the guy who single-handedly won the province and hauled 100,000 yuan into the factory's account, is simply true. Next morning, I strolled into Gao's office, where he and Fan were mid-discussion about expansion, poured myself a cup of water, sat down, and didn't bring it up. Just listened until they were done, then mentioned, like it had slipped my mind, that there was a small family matter. And Gao perked up instantly, because I never ask for anything. So if I'm asking, you move. My Mei-Mei's 7, time for school. My mother's been fretting over which one. That's the whole ask. And shrewd old Gao got it before the sentence finished and slapped his thigh. How did I forget, Engineer Chen? Your family is our family. Your Mei-Mei's schooling is a factory priority. Leave it to me. He cranked the hand phone, barked, connect me to ZD Primary. Get me Principal Shen. And the phone was loud enough that the whole office heard the principal snap to attention. Our factory's greatest contributor, Chen Wei, has a little Mei-Mei, Chen Yu, 7, enrolling at your school. Process her immediately. Best class, best teacher. Understand? Understood, understood. We'll treat Engineer Chen's Mei-Mei as our most important student. Total elapsed time, 5 minutes. And Fawn watched it with a complicated heart, because he remembered when I first showed up and a junior personnel section chief felt free to jerk me around. And now the factory director personally speed dials the best school in the county and arranges everything perfect without me raising my voice. That's what competence buys. I went home early to a pacing Mother Wong and told her it was handled, then pulled out the new school bag, pencil case, pencils, and eraser the factory had bought for you, and she bounced around the room with her brand new gear while Mother Wong teared up holding my hand. Good boy, you make me proud. I rode you to ZD Primary on the Forever bicycle, and Principal Shen himself was waiting at the gate to grip my hands and gush, walked us personally through every step, and delivered you to the Class 1 homeroom teacher with instructions to take great care of the hero's Mei-Mei. And I crouched by her little desk in the bright, clean classroom, patted her head, study hard, listen to your teachers, make friends. And she nodded so hard her eyes sparkled, and something warm cracked open in my chest. Because this, a starving family's little girl, sitting safe in the best classroom in the county, was the whole point of every lathe. Meanwhile, the numbers went absurd. 500 Dongfanghong 59 tractors, done in under 4 months on the new line. And when the last one rolled off wearing a giant red flower, the whole factory lost it. The machines earned a provincial reputation for durability. Orders flooded in, and the Provincial Department of Agriculture immediately reordered 1,000 more. For the first time ever, Huayan Machinery Factory's books showed profit north of 1 million yuan. Gao kept his word. Everyone on the project got a fat bonus, and that year every worker family's New Year table had extra dishes, and every kid had new clothes. And my name stopped being a Huayan thing and became a whole province thing, splashed across the Jianglin daily again and again until my reputation soaked through the entire provincial industrial system.
Which is exactly when opportunity, came looking for me in a black Volga. The Volga was the kind of car only city and prefecture leaders got, and out of it climbed a heavy-set, important-looking man in his 50s. Gao was happily reading his million-yuan financials when his secretary burst in to report that the director of the Chengping City Steel Rolling Mill had shown up in person, and Gao nearly dropped the papers. Because Chengping Steel Rolling is a top-tier state giant, tens of thousands of workers, annual output dozens of times Huayan's. Next to that director, Gao is a minnow next to a whale. He straightened his clothes and scrambled out, fawning. "Director Luo, why no warning? I'd have met you at the county line." And Director Luo Min shook his hand and said he'd come specially to visit a highly respected person at the factory. "A master," said Gao, and felt the floor drop out of his stomach, because he already knew. "Yep, I'm here to meet Comrade Chen Wei, poacher." Gao's worst nightmare walked in wearing a nice coat. I came in, greeted him respectful and humble, and Luo didn't waste a syllable. "On behalf of Chengping Steel Rolling Factory, I formally invite you to be our chief engineer." Boom. That word detonated in Gao's skull, because Chengping's chief engineer is a proper division-level cadre, higher rank than Gao himself, director of a whole county factory. And then Luo stacked the offer into a mountain, watching Gao go pale the whole time. Administrative level 10, 149.5 yuan a month, roughly double my pay. A 3-bedroom apartment in the cadre building, jobs for my whole family, and the best school for my Mei, all arranged. And the kicker aimed straight at the heart of any real engineer. A dedicated research institute, hundreds of engineers, cutting-edge Soviet-imported equipment, approved funding, research whatever you want. It was, objectively, a life-changing, dream-tier offer, the kind nobody on Earth says no to, and everyone in the room knew it. Gao's back went cold and wet, because what could he counter with? Luo's an aircraft carrier, and Gao's a fishing boat. How do you keep a dragon in a puddle? His lips moved and nothing came out, because everything he could give me, Luo could give 10 times over. And Fan gripped his enamel mug hard enough to dent it, furious at Luo for poaching right in front of the boss, and terrified the once-in-a-generation genius was about to get talked away by sweet numbers. And I showed nothing. No excitement, no surprise. I listened all the way to the end, then smiled faintly. "Director Luo, thank you for your kindness." Gao's heart clenched. Here it comes, the polite yes. Luo smiled, confident, certain, waiting for the obvious. "But I can't go." And Luo's smile froze on his face. "What?" Gao's head snapped up, not believing his ears. Fan's eyes went wide. And I calmly refilled both teacups and said the thing that put a grown factory director's eyes underwater. "I'm a rough man, bad at pretty words, but I know a drop of kindness gets repaid with a spring of gratitude. When I came to Huayan, I was a penniless vocational grad who could barely eat, and it was Director Gao, Chief Engineer Fan, and the workers here who gave me the chance and the trust." I turned to Gao, whose eyes instantly flooded. "Director Gao treats me like family, not an employee. Solved my home troubles without hesitation. Got my Mei into school with one phone call. Poured the whole factory's resources behind me and said he'd take the blame if anything broke. With a bond like that, if I walked out for money or a title, would I even be a person anymore? Huayan is my home, my roots, and a man can't forget where he came from. So thank you, Director Lowe, truly, but I can't leave." And Lowe stared at this not yet 20-year-old who just turned down the offer of a lifetime with the plainest reason in the world. And after decades of watching people job hop for a nickel and claw over each other for rank, he wasn't angry. He was floored. Capable people he'd met by the hundred, capable and loyal and true to his roots, that he almost never saw. He took a breath, and his smile came back real this time. "Well said, Comrade Chen Wei. I learned something today. I was presumptuous. Old Gao, you're blessed with a general who's as loyal as he is brilliant. I envy you." And Gao grabbed his hand, too choked to speak. And then I flipped the entire table. "Director Luo, I can't come, but our 2 factories don't have to be strangers." Luo lit up. "How do we cooperate?" And I calmly reached.
into the man's deepest wound. I hear Chengping's huge on output, but stuck on high-precision special steels, specifically that you can't get the phosphorus content down, which tanks your performance, correct? Luo's pupils shrank, because that was the exact problem his provincial expert panel couldn't crack, and this county kid just named it cold. Correct, he admitted. And I smiled. I happen to have a new dephosphorization process for converter steelmaking. Won't promise it fixes everything, but it'll push your special steel up a full grade. Luo nearly couldn't stand, grabbed my arm, voice shaking. Are you serious? And of course, I nodded. But I have one condition. Name it. Name 10, Luo begged. And here's the reverse power move that left the whole room slack-jawed. My condition is simple. Huayan is starting a new and very important project that needs a batch of very special steel, and I want Chengping to be our top priority supplier. Whatever we need, however much, best quality, fastest speed. And Gao and Fan just stared, because I hadn't just refused the poach, I'd turned the poacher into my personal logistics base. Luo locked eyes with me for 10 full seconds, then threw his head back and boomed, laughing. Good. Well done, Chenwei. I'm going to be your friend. It's just special steel. Whatever you need, I'll make it. And what I can't make, I'll hunt down across the whole country for you. This deal is on. A county kid walked into a poaching attempt by a state giant and walked out with a loyal patron, a steel supply chain, and a favor still in his pocket. Luo was a decisive man, and now that we had a deal, he couldn't wait to fly home and sick his technical staff on the new process. But not before I sat down at Gao's desk and, on the spot, wrote out a 3-page technical outline in pen. Not step-by-step instructions, but a whole new way of thinking. Slag system, temperature control, oxygen blowing method, the key points of double slag operation, every line going straight to the core. And Luo read it and gasped. Because even as a non-technician, he had the eye of a big factory boss. And this outline flipped his whole understanding on its head, like someone flicked a 1,000-watt searchlight on for a man who'd been groping in the dark. Genius, he breathed, hands shaking on ink-wet paper, and tucked it away like treasure. Anything you ever need from me or Chengping, just ask. We are your strongest support. And Gao walked him to the Volga personally, and only exhaled when the car vanished in a dust cloud, his whole back soaked through. He turned to me on the office steps and just didn't have words big enough. Back inside, he poured me tea with both hands, voice thick with survived-it relief. Honestly, when Luo stacked those conditions, I thought I'd lost you. And Fan chimed in that old Gao had looked like his father died, and I sipped my tea and said the thing that settled it for good. Huayan's a tractor that just started rolling. Not much horsepower yet, but real momentum. And I'm one of the guys driving it. So how would I jump off halfway? Besides, my family's here. This is home. And Gao slapped his thigh and swore the next person who tried to poach his people was getting chased out with a broom. Then Gao's curiosity, which had been screaming the whole time, finally won. He leaned in and asked the question everyone wanted. What is this mysterious project? The one that needs steel a state megamill might not even be able to make? And Fan pricked up his ears, too. And I smiled mysterious, pulled a thick brown file bag from my briefcase, and spread a stack of blueprints across the desk. Pages crawling with precise part drawings, circuit diagrams, structures so intricate they dazzled 2 men who'd spent their whole lives in mechanics. The system had just handed me a manual titled Complete Guide to the Manufacturing of Color Electron Tube Televisions, and these were its guts. Fan put on his reading glasses, leaned in, and got nothing. Picture tube, electron gun, deflection coil, high-voltage transformer, words from a planet he'd never visited. And Gao pointed at the biggest drawing, a trumpet-shaped glass bottle, and asked what the thing was. It looked like a giant thermos. And I pointed from the blueprint to the old Red Star radio in the corner and dropped it slow. A radio lets us hear sound from 1,000 miles away. What if we built something that let us not just hear, but see moving images from 1,000 miles away? See moving images? The 2 of them stared. Yes, I said, finger-pressing the glass bottle. We'll build an iron box that shows moving pictures. Its name is television. If Luo's poaching was an artillery shell, this word was an atomic bomb. television. They'd only seen it as a blurry photo in a foreign life pamphlet, a magic box rarer than a car and more precious than gold, the bragging pinnacle of capitalist tech, a handful in the whole country, and all of them parked in front of top leaders in the capital. And I wanted to build one here, in a county shop that had to hand-modify its own grinders. Gao literally reached out to feel my forehead, convinced I'd finally overworked myself into fever babble. And Fan shook his head at the incomprehensible pile. "You're brilliant, kid, but this isn't a tractor. It's electricity and glass. We don't have a decent electrician or a glass factory. It's a pipe dream." Exactly the reaction I expected, because asking a tractor factory to build a TV was a fantasy even in the 21st century, never mind 1959. But I had a system, and decades of stolen future knowledge, and right on cue. Ding! New main quest. Light up the first screen. Lead Huayan from scratch to the nation's first fully independent electron tube television that actually receives a signal and glows. Reward. Master-level radio technology plus a mystery blueprint. I nearly cheered, because master radio skill was the one missing piece. Signal transmission and reception. Solved. Then my master electronics skill lit up, and I explained it in language 2 mechanics could hold. The picture tube's a vacuum glass shell. The electron gun fires invisible electrons like a machine gun at the screen. The inside's coated in phosphor that glows where the electrons hit. Hard hits bright, soft hits dim. Countless dots making a picture. And the deflection coil is an invisible hand that whips the beam across the screen dozens of times a second, faster than the eye can follow, so still dots become moving images. And Fan, completely captured, asked how the picture moves, and slowly the impossible metal box started sounding like maybe not entirely impossible. Then Gao asked the real one. Fine, we build the box, but where does the picture come from? A radio hears sound because a station broadcasts it. Who broadcasts to our TV? And I said, we'll build that ourselves. Gao's eyes nearly launched out of his head. Build a radio station? Isn't that the military's job? Not a station, I corrected. A television transmission tower. Doesn't need to be big, just enough to cover Huayan County. Start with a small one, a few dozen meters tall on the factory hilltop for testing. And the two old men went dead silent, brains stalling, because from tractors to special steel to televisions to building its own broadcast tower, they'd stopped being able to find the edge of me. Where were my limits? Did I even have any? And that's when Chief Engineer Fan caught fire. He'd understood the drawings better than Gao, understood this wasn't machining anymore. It was electronics and vacuum and chemistry and materials science, nearly every branch of modern industry at once, and understood what it would mean. Huayan would stop being a county tractor shop and leap into a national star enterprise with the most advanced tech in the country. An old man who'd spent his whole life on mechanical gears, getting to help build a box that shows moving images before he retired. His blood went to a boil. He shot up, bloodshot eyes blazing, grabbed Gao's arm and shook it, voice cracking with something close to reverence. Old Gao, let's do it. We listened to Engineer Chen. Tractors solved our stomachs, but this changes how people live. This isn't an innovation, Lao Gao. This is a whole new industrial revolution. And Gao, startled, then infected, felt it too. Did he really just want to run a 1,000-person shop, pumping out a few hundred tractors a year? Or did he want Huayan Machinery Factory's name to ring across the whole country? He didn't used to have the courage or the ability. Now he had me. He slammed the table hard enough to make the room jump and said one word. Do it. Engineer Chen, go. Even if it costs Huayan everything we've got, I'll eat it. We built tractors out of thin air. What's a metal box? Two men with a combined age near 100, buzzing like they'd been injected with rooster blood, and I just smiled. Because that's the whole game won. With both top bosses fully behind me, the television project could officially begin. And I immediately clamped the lid on. Highest secrecy, I said. To the outside world, we're just doing more tractor modifications, and every person on this team gets hand-picked for skill and reliability. Gao waved it off. I'll set up a special Project 81 team. Your leader, Chief Engineer Fan's deputy. You pick the people, and I personally interview every one. And old Zhang from security guards the secret. Anyone who leaks a word gets court-martialed. And I already had my short list half drawn, because breakthroughs need a master craftsman willing to go deep, Guo Lei, and manufacturing needs a mountain of tireless muscle, Big Jiaming. The county that couldn't make its tractor quota a year ago was about to secretly try to build the nation's first television. Now here's the ugly little tax nobody warns you about when your family climbs out of the hole. The leeches show up. Back in Chen family village, Jiaming's father, Chen Guangming, had gone from a nobody everyone bullied, the poor, honest guy who smoked his pipe in the corner at village meetings because he had no confidence to speak, to Uncle Chen Guangming, brother Xingchang, a man people suddenly wanted to know. Because Jiaming mailed home 20 yuan a month, and in a village where a strong laborer breaks his back all year for work points that barely feed a family, 20 yuan a month plus factory ration coupons was a fortune with its own gravity. The news lappers the village in a day, and Chen Guangming's doorstep never knew peace again. Auntie Guo Shu from the East End floated in with half a basket of eggs. "My boy grew up with your Jiaming. Could Jiaming ask if the factory's still hiring?" Uncle Chen Zhou from the West End hobbled over on his cane, sighing about his bad legs. "Could you lend me 3 or 5 yuan? I'll pay you back after harvest." And gentle, thin-skinned Chen Guangming, who physically cannot say no to a smiling face, took the eggs and owed the favor and lent the money he'd never see again, while his wife, Jiaofan, wept with rage behind his back. "You honest fool, does our money grow on trees?" This is the couple who, remember, spent their last morning as guests quietly fixing the Chen family's woodpile and fence because they refused to eat and stay for free. Decent people get eaten alive by this stuff. And then came the apex predator, a village rot named, I'm not making this up, the Rogue, who by the family tree was supposed to call Chen Guangming uncle, and who'd been a lazy, gluttonous menace since birth. He swaggered into the yard one afternoon, straw in his teeth, dragging his slow-witted son, flattened a fresh stack of Chen Guangming's hand-woven baskets by sitting on them, and got to his point. "My boy's 18, no future rotting in these fields, and your Jiaming's a big-shot city worker now. So as his uncle, you can't just feed your own family and forget your poor relatives. Have your Chen Wei get my son a city job. Doesn't even have to be permanent, just a temp slot with government grain." And Chen Guangming shook with fury. Those jobs were earned. Xiao Wei got them by ability. I'd be shameless to ask him for that. And the Rogue spat out his straw and went cold. "I don't care. You're rich now. You help us, or you're looking down on us. And if you don't say yes today, starting tomorrow, I bring people to eat at your table every single day. And I'll tell the whole village that Chen Guangming got rich and turned his heart to stone on his own nephew." In Chen family village, he laughed, hands on hips. "I am the law." And the monster kept his word. 3 days straight, at every mealtime, he planted himself and his son at the table and ate whatever poor Jiaofan cooked. Day 1, cornmeal porridge and pickled veg, gone, with a complaint it wasn't oily enough. Day 2, she cooked nothing but plain sweet potatoes out of spite, and he wolfed them, burped, and asked if she could make meat tomorrow, since he'd heard Brother Jiaming mails meat coupons home. Day 3, he brought 2 more village loafers, 4 of them filling the table, and Chen Guangming sat there shaking so hard the rice bowl rattled in his hand, tears of pure helplessness in his old eyes. Because he and his wife had been kind their whole lives and had no weapon for a shameless man. They lay awake at night, moonlight cold on their faces, caught in the worst trap a good poor family knows. Tell the boys in the city, and you ruin the pride they just earned. Or stay silent and let the leech bleed you dry forever. Here's the thing the Rogue doesn't understand, sitting there king of a dinner table he stole. He thinks the city is far away. He thinks I'm an eagle too high in the clouds to notice a village worm, and that 20 yuan a month means the Lins are just soft marks with fat pockets now. He has no idea. He has no idea that the quiet young man he's counting on being too important to care is the same man who tracked down a saboteur through a scrap metal yard to clear his mother's name, who keeps a very careful ledger of exactly who was kind to his family and who wasn't. And the 2 gentle old people crying in that yard are near the top of the kindness column. It started with a letter because the old man finally broke. After 3 days of feeding the leech, Chen Guangming locked himself in his room and smoked his pipe till dawn, aging 10 years in a night of smoke, and had barely literate Zhao Fen help him write to Jia Ming. But even cornered, he couldn't bring himself to say the awful part, so the letter just gently mentioned that a relative kept pestering them about a job and they were in a tough spot, was the factory hiring, so they'd have a reason to say no. Careful, soft, terrified of troubling the kids. A week later, it reached the casting workshop, and since Jia Ming can't read, he had a coworker read it aloud. And the instant the Rogan comes to eat every day hit the air, Jia Ming's face changed. Because he's honest, not stupid, and he knows his parents to the bone. They'd never write this unless they were being crushed. He heard the desperation the light words were hiding, roared, and put his fist through the wooden sandbox next to him, leaving a knuckle crater in packed molding sand. Then he snatched the letter and bolted out of the factory without asking for leave, heading home to break that bastard's legs personally. And ran straight into me at the door. Jia Ming, seeing me, first felt rescued, then panicked and hid the letter behind his back, because his logic was pure Jia Ming. Xiaowei is the family's whole hope. I can't burden him with village garbage. And worse, what if he arranges the rogue's kid a job just to spare our parents and hurts himself doing it? So he lied, badly. Everything's fine at home. Dad said focus on work, while sweating and backing away, clutching a letter he wouldn't hand over. And I have X-ray eyes for exactly this. I didn't grab, I didn't shout. I just said quietly, "Brother, we're family, right? We share good and bad. You're hiding something. Does that mean you don't count me as your brother anymore?" And the 20-something mountain who catches molten cauldrons crumpled, squatted down on the ground, covered his head, and bawled like a kid, and handed over the letter. I read it, and when I hit the rogue, eating every day, arrange a job, my eyes went cold. The specific frozen cold I save for thugs who bully gentle people. "Don't cry, brother. It's nothing serious. Leave it to me. Not only will he never set foot in the factory, I'll teach him what happens when someone bullies a Chen." But Project 81 had just launched and the timing was wrong, so I filed it, cold and patient, for the right moment. The right moment came fast. I took the afternoon, walked Jia Ming up to Gao's office, and did the thing I'd never once done. Asked for a day of leave. Gao nearly fell over, because his workaholic prince had never requested time off, so it had to be serious, and he immediately offered a car, a driver, the stars from the sky. "No need," I said. "Bikes are fine. Some places cars can't reach. It's just small family business." And Gao, reading the calm that wasn't quite calm, granted it, but made me promise, if it's more than you can handle, tell the factory. You're the backbone now. Don't carry everything alone. Then I went home, pulled a wooden box from under the bed, counted out 300 yuan of saved bonus money, wrapped it in a handkerchief, and, this is the part that matters, also rolled up a set of blueprints and stuffed them in the bag. Jia Ming panicked at the money. "Xiaowei, we're going to fix trouble, not hand out cash." "Just follow me," I said, and swung a leg over the forever bicycle. "Get on the back." He hesitated. "I'm heavy. Can you even carry me?" And got a flat, "Get up." Because my stamina isn't human. My legs pumped like motors, and the bike shot down the dirt road in a plume of yellow dust. Dozens of miles of mountain road eaten in a little over an hour, while Big Jia Ming sat on the back watching my straight spine and felt his rage settle into something calm. Because with me there, he could hold up the sky if it fell. We rolled into Chen Family Village on a gleaming new bicycle that had the whole road gawking, and I pedaled straight to the big locust tree at the entrance. And before Jia Ming could even dismount, out of a crooked mud brick house strolled the man himself. Thin as a stick, sallow, triangle-eyed, oozing that cocky, sidelong sneer. The rogue. 2 village loafers slouching behind him with grass in their teeth. "Oh, who's this grand arrival?" he drawled, eyeing the shiny bike with naked greed. "If it isn't our Chen family's big-shot city cadre, what brings you back to our poor little village?" And Jia Ming went red and lunged. "You son of a bitch, I'll kill you." And my arm clamped him still like an iron bar. "Brother, don't move." And then the rogue did the dumbest thing a man has ever done in this entire story. Emboldened by his home turf and his 2 goons, he stepped right up nose to nose, spat out that maybe the cadre had spent so long in the city he looked down on his peasant relatives now, and reached out with a greasy, sour-smelling hand to slap my face. Not a punch, a humiliation, staged for the whole watching village, to prove that even a city cadre gets bossed by the local law when he comes home. I moved too fast to see. My left hand snapped out, caught the wrist mid-air, and squeezed. Crack. A wet snap and a pig slaughter scream rang across the whole village. And then, one-handed, by that chicken bone wrist, I lifted the full-grown rascal clean off the ground like hoisting a chick, legs kicking air, face going liver purple. The two goons' grins froze and fell off, grass roots dropping from slack jaws. One hand, he picked up a grown man. Is that even human? The whole village went dead silent. Everybody had heard I made it big in the city. Nobody pictured this. Even Jiaming stood stunned, because he knew I was strong, but not lift a man like a torn sack strong. The rogue dangled there sobbing snot, all the arrogance gone. Let go, it hurts, my hand's broken. And a warm stain spread down his pants, and a foul smell filled the air, because my grip left zero doubt that a little more pressure ends the arm. I dropped him with a wet plop, and he collapsed into a howling mud lump, clutching his deformed wrist. Then I pulled a handkerchief, slowly wiped the hand that had touched me, and threw the handkerchief on the ground like it had brushed the most disgusting thing on earth. I stepped on his chest and delivered the verdict cold as ice. My uncle Chen Guangming and my aunt are the two kindest people alive. They've never fought a soul, and anyone who makes them suffer the smallest grievance is going against me. Then I leaned down and whispered the actual death sentence. The Northeast farms are short on labor for land reclamation, and a lazy good-for-nothing like you is perfect for it. And if you ever step in my uncle's yard again or gossip about them, I'll send you, your precious son, and your wife up there for reform. Believe me? And the rogue believed me completely, because a man who becomes a city factory cadre courted by county leaders can absolutely erase a village worm. And losing his freedom is the one thing a parasite fears more than a broken wrist. He kowtowed in his own filth, swearing he was a bastard, not human. He'd never come near the house again. The two goons dropped and kowtowed too. The rascal made us do it, and got one word: roll. They ran and didn't look back, and the villagers exhaled like a spell broke, staring at me with pure awe, muttering, "Serves him right. The plague finally met someone he couldn't push." I didn't even glance back at the groaning heap. Brother, let's go home. We walked through the frozen, silent crowd into the village, and found Uncle Chen Guangming and Aunt Zhao Zhao Fun in the yard, among the leftover chicken bones and dirty bowls the leeches had just left behind. The old man puffing his pipe into a sorrowful cloud, the old woman's eyes red and swollen, trying and failing to thread a needle to mend a shirt. Then they looked up and saw their two sons in the doorway and nearly fell over. "Why are you back? Is it that letter?" And Uncle Chen's face flooded with panic and self-blame, certain his note had dragged the kids into it. "Uncle Chen, Aunt Zhao, it's handled," I said, steadying my shaking aunt. "Handled? You saw the rogue?" And Jiaming, hoarse and proud, told them Xiao Wei dealt with him. That bastard will never dark their door again. Aunt Zhao Zhao Fun panicked harder. "You didn't fight. Are you hurt? That scoundrel plays dirty." And I smiled. "No fighting. We just had a reasonable conversation." "Reasonable?" scoffed Uncle Chen. "If the rogue listened to reason, he wouldn't be the rogue." So Jiaming, unable to help himself, told the story. The one hand the man lifted like a chick, and the old couple sat speechless. And then Aunt Zhao cried and laughed at once. The months-long weight finally rolling off their chests, their backs actually straightening. The plague was gone. They could breathe. But I wasn't finished, because the beating was never the point. The point was the ledger. I set the handkerchief on the stone table and unfolded it, and 300 yuan of red banknotes blazed in the afternoon sun. The old couple stopped breathing. 300 yuan, a sum 2 dirt farmers couldn't save frugally in a lifetime, and recoiled like it was hot, shoving it back. No, you earn this hard. You and your mother and you have a life to fund in the city." And I held their hands still. "This money isn't for spending." Then I unrolled the blueprint. A beautiful 2-story house, big windows, a proud front door, a little balcony, and labels the old people had to sound out. living room, bedroom, kitchen, and a word they'd never heard in their lives, flush toilet. "This is for building a house," I said. "Your old place is decades of falling down mud, so I'm building you a new one, to this exact drawing, a 2-story, Western-style building, and I'll get you moved in before winter, the first house in all of Huayan County with a flush toilet." And the couple went slack-jawed, because even the old landlord's mansion, the richest house they'd ever seen, wasn't this grand, and Uncle Chen held the trembling paper and wept 2 silent lines down his weathered face, looking at a dream he'd never have dared to dream, built for him by the penniless nephew he once fed. And the system, which loves a good deed, chimed in. Family glory and village reputation up, reward unlocked, a family prosperity gift pack containing a full blueprint set and technical guide for a small home biogas digester. And my eyes lit, because I know this cold from the 21st century. Dig a sealed pit, feed it manure and rotted scraps and straw, let it ferment airless, and it burns off methane. Free cooking gas, plus the leftover slurry is premium fertilizer, plus it cleans up the latrines and kills the flies. A triple win handed to me on a plate with a foolproof manual. And standing there, watching the whole village crane their necks over 300 yuan in a Western house, I made a bigger decision. "It's not real wealth if only my uncle's rich," I announced to the courtyard. "Only when all of Chen family village lives well are we truly rich. You all climb the mountain to chop firewood to cook, right? Exhausting, endless, and the hills are stripped bare?" Heads nodded, everybody complaining at once. "Well, I've got a new way. No chopping wood, no burning coal, and every family gets a fire to cook on, every single day." Uproar. "Fire without firewood? Is the boy talking nonsense? There's no free lunch. Can fire fall from the sky?" And that's where we'll leave the man who, 1 year ago, opened his eyes under a newspaper ceiling in a starving house with a dying mother, a temp worker cousin, and one absurd whispering system, and who is now, in a single afternoon, the guy who snapped the village bully with one hand, is building his uncle the first flush toilet in the county, and is about to hand an entire dirt-poor village free gas out of thin air. From a bowl of bitter medicine to a 2-story house with a balcony. I solved the county's food with a tractor nobody thought I could build, refused a fortune to stay loyal to the men who bet on me, quietly boxed a state megamill into supplying my steel, and back in the factory, under the codename Project 81, a hand-picked crew is secretly chasing the one thing no county shop in the country has ever built, an iron box that shows moving pictures from 1,000 miles away. The tractor was just the tutorial. The television is the main quest. And a man who builds grinders out of dead lathes and lifts grown men by the wrist tends to finish his quests. Ask me what happens the night a county tractor factory secretly lights up the first television screen in the nation. Because that's exactly where I pick this up next time.